Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
It's time to end Andrew Perloff's national nightmare and get Brandon Aiyuk to the Commanders. What's up? It is EJ Stewart. This is the Maggie and Perloff Show. I'm the executive producer of the Maggie and Perloff Show, filling in for the great Maggie Gray and the great Andrew Perloff. I'll be with you for the next 4 hours here on Infinity Sports Network. A lot to get to on this show, including my 5 bold predictions for the college football season, why the fall off of the Pittsburgh Steelers is imminent, and why one NFL team I have a bad feeling is about to make a grave mistake that could damage the franchise for years. Also, can we kill preseason? A lot to get to, man. I'm so excited to be here. And, obviously, elephant in the room, I've not been in studio for almost 2 months now after I injured my knee. We'll get plenty of updates on what happened to my knee, how I'm doing, when I'll fully be back. But I will say it is good to be back, particularly here in the host chair, filling in for, again, Maggie and Perloff. The Commanders opened up a window to compete in a way that I think can be transformational for the franchise. And they can kind of move on from the tyranny that was the Daniel Snyder era by acquiring Brandon Aiyuk. And it is not something they need to explore. It's not something I want them to try. It's not something I want them to attempt. They need to get this done. But how do we get Brandon Aiyuk, who's currently with the 49ers, discontented with his contract situation, not practicing, not with the team? How do we get him from from San Francisco, all the way, all the way to Washington? How do we get there? Well, it's so funny. Sometimes you scroll on your timeline, you see a sports story that makes you say, huh? And that's pretty much what happened to me yesterday, because the show ends yesterday, and, I'm getting ready. I do physical therapy now twice a week, so I'm, kind of getting myself prepared to go to physical therapy. And I look on my Apple Watch, get the notification. The Philadelphia Eagles of the NFC East acquire wide receiver Jahan Dotson from the Washington Commanders of the NFC East. Huh? That was my reaction, because let's be real, you do not see divisional trades happen very often in the NFL, and really not in many sports for obvious reasons. And I see the Commanders, typically a clown show of an organization, giving up on a first-round pick and trading him to the rival Eagles, potentially handing Philly the missing piece to their already completely loaded offense. I'm saying, I know what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm coming in, I'm crushing the Commanders, because clearly they still have no idea what they're doing. But then last night happened. And you had the great Michael Silver, longtime NFL reporter, longtime NFL columnist, who kind of crystallized to me why we saw that weird trade last night or yesterday that made me go, huh? Because Silver, who's based in the Bay Area, he's covered the 49ers for a very long time. He's as plugged in to the San Francisco 49er organization as much as any reporter we have covering the NFL. He went on radio yesterday and said that right now, in terms of the Brandon Aiyuk situation, all things are on the table. Which is interesting, because what we've been hearing for the last 3 to 4 days, maybe really most of this week, is that essentially the trade scenario for Aiyuk was kind of out of the window. There was not going to be some team that was going to come in and either match what the Niners wanted in compensation or match what Brandon Aiyuk wanted from a contract situation. So now it became, well, things are going slow, but there is movement and there is talking with the 49ers and Aiyuk's team. And, you kind of got the innuendo that something could get done with Brandon Aiyuk. But Silver now says, again, all things are on the table, including all the trades we've been speculating. And, he mentions the Steelers as being an obvious situation because we've talked about the Steelers pretty much since this whole thing began. The Patriots took themselves out, so I think he said that was probably still unlikely. But then he mentioned a team that I wasn't expecting. I don't think a lot of folks were expecting last night when he went on a local radio in the Bay Area. He said the Commanders trade scenario he's hearing is back on the table. And that could still be a possibility. And that's combined with what's always been I don't want to call it bizarre, but the kind of weird social media behavior by Brandon Aiyuk. Yesterday, he liked another post of him in a Commander's uniform. These things don't even become headlines anymore because he's always doing something weird on social media. So, when I was getting ready to, prepare for this show and figure out what's been going on beyond the Silver report, I saw that as a report that was not being discussed very often. That the fact that he'd already liked him in a Commander's post, because he seems to like, comments saying he should be traded, pictures of him in other jerseys. He does this every week. So it didn't make news, but I think the fact that he liked a picture on social media of him in a Commander's uniform on the same day that the Commanders make a trade getting rid of one of their top wide receivers, and on the same day that Michael Silver, plugged-in reporter, says, well, there's a chance that the Commanders are very much still in play for Brandon Aiyuk. One's an accident, two's a trend, three's evidence. That's three things that make me feel like, okay, we might have something cooking here. So, like I said, the Commanders were said to be out of the Brandon Aiyuk sweepstakes. For weeks, it's been clear that's where Aiyuk is wanting to go. I say weeks, really more months to me. The guys felt like anytime we've seen Brandon Aiyuk not with the 49ers, I know he's been at camp, but he's not practicing. He's been with Jaden Daniels, the quarterback for the Washington Commanders. Of course, their number 2 overall pick. Those guys are inseparable, it seems like. I mean, they're really good friends, apparently. Of course, Aiyuk played with Jaden Daniels when they both were at Arizona State. I talked about the social media activity. He always seemed to love the pictures of him in Commanders uniforms. To me, it's very clear that if he could, and I think part of the reason, honestly, now we're really kind of, maybe I'm tinfoil hatting this, but I start thinking about why was he so adamant on not going to the Patriots? Why is the Steelers thing not really picked up steam the way we thought? Maybe he's still trying to hold out hope that he could find a way to go with his boy Jaden Daniels in Washington. But look, if I'm Adam Peters, who worked under John Lynch, he's the general manager of the Commanders. This guy came from the 49ers, so he knows Brandon Aiyuk well. He's part of a front office that drafted Brandon Aiyuk in the first round. I'm asking San Fran, what do I have to do to get Aiyuk here? And I'm getting it done. Because, number one, regardless of whether Dotson was ever going to realize first-round pick potential with the Commanders, he had a pretty decent rookie year that was plagued by injury. Last year, I don't know what happened. He didn't play well. He couldn't figure it out. He had drops. He did not have a good season last year. He's still a young player, though. But regardless of whether or not that was going to figure itself out, he was still a body in a receiving room that is now extremely thin outside of Terry McLaurin. And now you have your rookie quarterback who's never played in the NFL going into the season with now a major upheaval in his receiver room and limited resources. I saw they were talking about Martavis Bryant being a factor for the Washington Commanders receivers this year. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Martavis Bryant hasn't played since 2017, 2016. It is not an ideal situation for a rookie quarterback to walk in and have his number 2 receiver, regardless of whether he could figure out Cliff Kingsbury's offense, regardless of whether he looked like he may not reach first-round pick potential. The guy was still a body and a guy who's played in the NFL, a guy with NFL first-team reps. You would think that guy could help Jaden Daniels. And they just said, Adios, son. I mean, they essentially swapped third-round picks and then took a seventh just to get him out the building. Which is why I was so ready to crush the Commanders. But then you hear the Michael Silver report. You say, okay, maybe something is happening here. So number one, you got to get Aiyuk here because you just lost your number 2 receiver. Whether he was a good number 2 is not the conversation. They don't have a number 2 on the roster. I don't believe in McCaffrey and Luke McCaffrey is coming in week 1 as a rookie and being able to be a number 2 receiver. And like I said, we're talking about Martavis Bryant seriously with the Commanders. So you need to get Aiyuk because you need a body to help the situation just to make sure Jaden Daniels isn't walking into a dumpster fire. Number 2, Aiyuk is a perfect fit for the Commanders. And I actually think he gives them a chance to be a player in the NFC East, maybe in the entire NFC. Because Brandon Aiyuk became a first-round pick catching passes from Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. Those two are tight. They have familiarity. And I think Aiyuk can help Daniels' acclimation to the NFL by them being together. But it is also a great scheme fit. Forget about the vibes fit. The vibes fit is immaculate. We know why it makes sense for those guys to be together. But I think as a scheme fit, this also would be a perfect fit for the Commanders. Because there's been a lot of conversation, some on this show, about Brandon Aiyuk perhaps being a system player. A guy that Kyle Shanahan molded into a guy who isn't actually good, but is good playing in Kyle Shanahan's system. That has been a lot of the narrative as to why they drafted Ricky Pearsall to potentially replace Brandon Aiyuk in San Francisco. And it is also why perhaps John Lynch and the front office is not so keen on making Brandon Aiyuk one of the highest paid receivers in the NFL. The idea that he's actually not that great, he's replaceable, and that if they lose him, they're not losing that much. We could have that conversation on the show. You can call in 855-212-4227 at any point to talk about this. But I don't think Brandon Aiyuk is a system guy for Kyle Shanahan. Because we forget. I talked about that connection that Daniels and Aiyuk had playing at Arizona State. They were not running a Kyle Shanahan offense when Brandon Aiyuk was catching 1,100 yards in college. They were not running Kyle Shanahan stuff when Brandon Aiyuk was lighting up the Pac-12 and earned himself a first-round pick selection kind of out of nowhere. They were running the air raid system. Spread offense. Popularized by the late, great Mike Leach. You know who's the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders? Mike Leach's essential protege, a guy who played for Mike Leach, a guy that is essentially one of the current godfathers of the air raid system as it is run today, Cliff Kingsbury. So now you got the familiarity just in terms of guys are friends, guys know each other, and guys played together in terms of Aiyuk and Daniels. But now I think you have Brandon Aiyuk going to a system that might fit him better. He may be a better player in Washington than he was in San Francisco. Because remember, it took Brandon Aiyuk years to figure out the Kyle Shanahan offense. He came in as one type of receiver, and the first year or two, he looked like a bust. It didn't look like it was going to work out. And credit to him, he learned the system, he learned how to play within his role, and he became a star. But it took years for him to become the player he was last year. And people still don't believe he's still that good. But what if Brandon Aiyuk gets to go back and play into the system that he actually was comfortable with in college, the system that got him to the NFL, essentially? Why couldn't he become a better player playing with a quarterback he's familiar with, playing across one of the other better receivers in the NFL, and Terry McLaurin? And let's talk about that pairing, by the way. Aiyuk, McLaurin, together, that's probably what? Top 5 receiving duo in the NFL? I'll give you Miami. I'll give you Philly. I'll give you Cincy. After that, Houston, I want to see what Stephon Diggs is in Houston before I say they're definitely top 5. Chicago, I want to see what, Caleb Williams and how Keenan Allen, how that pairing goes. Is Rome Odunze number 2? We don't really know who the second guy is besides DJ Moore. I don't know. I think it's tricky to find 5 better receiving duos potentially than Brandon Aiyuk and Terry McLaurin. And plus, we know Dan Quinn. He knows how to coach defense. He's familiar with these division foes. I think the Commanders could be dangerous in the NFC. If the Commanders complete this trade for Brandon, I think they become the new Detroit Lions. I'm not saying that the Detroit Lions from this year. I'm not saying the Detroit Lions from last year. But remember the Lions 2 years ago when you started to see things bubble up. A terrible, bumbling franchise that hasn't been able to get out of their way for decades. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, they got something cooking here. Oh, look at that offensive line. Oh, look at Goff improving. Oh, look at how they're able to run the football and be physical. Look at Dan Snyder. He's got these guys playing like madmen. Look at Aiden Hutchinson. You started to see the beginnings of something. And it culminated with them having a winning season and knocking Aaron Rodgers and the Packers out of the playoffs and sending Aaron Rodgers packing from Green Bay. I think that may be what you're seeing with the Commanders and how things are moving, especially if they find a way to make this what would be, I think, a mega deal to get Aiyuk to Washington. Do you think the Commanders should go all in on Brandon Aiyuk? I say absolutely. And there's risk involved with big business, man. Like, scared money don't make money. I know risking a first-round pick when you're you come in as maybe one of the worst teams in the NFL is a risk. Whether it's a this year pick, whether it's a next year pick, it all comes with risk. Giving Aiyuk a lot of money, considering you're talking about a guy who, in terms of elite numbers, 1 year of elite numbers production. He's been good for 2 years, but elite, you probably say 1 year. Yes, good business comes with risk. I think this is good business for the Commanders. I would go all in on Brandon Aiyuk. 855-212-4227. Would you go all in on Brandon Aiyuk if you were the Washington Commanders? I say this every time I step behind the mic. And I don't say this, or it hasn't changed because I have a bum knee now. I sit here in this long leg brace, having not been in these studios for almost 2 months. The rules haven't changed. There's 2 commandments to any radio show that EJ Stewart hosts. Number 1, EJ will always keep it 100. Number 2, EJ is ducking no smoke. So if you want to call and you think I'm crazy for suggesting the Commanders should consider trading a first-round pick and backing up the Brinks truck for Brandon Aiyuk, I want to hear from you. 855-212-4227. You agree with your boy. I want to hear from you. 855-212-4227. You can also tweet me. EJ_Stewart as well. I like to read tweets on the air as long as you're not sending me weird stuff on X. Like Elon Musk has ruined X. So I always use the caveat of as long as you don't like curse me out, as long as you're not sending me something weird, then you're all good and I'll read your tweets on the air. But now I'm a little concerned considering how somehow Twitter has gotten worse. Since the last time I've hosted a show, somehow there's more OnlyFans accounts on there. There's more weirdo accounts on there. Like, so I don't know what is going to be sent to me over the next 4 hours. But as long as it is about sports, as long as it isn't about this show, I'll read your tweets on the air. So hit your boy up on Twitter. Give me a follow while you're at it. EJ_Stewart on Twitter/X. Coming up, we've discussed the Commander side of this potential situation. Is time running out on the 49ers' reign in the NFC? I'll tell you why that answer is yes. After this, it is EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We will be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. What's up? It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. It's so funny when you're about to do a show the day before and you think your show is going to go one way, but then something happens later in the evening that makes you go a totally different way. I was so ready to come in and be like, what are the Commanders doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, I know Jahan Dotson has been a disappointment. I will share personally. I root very hardly for the Jahan Dotson. You're probably like, why the hell is EJ rooting for some random wide receiver for the Commanders who played at Penn State? Jahan Dotson actually grew up in the housing development, so to speak, that my family lives in Lehigh Valley. He went on the same school bus as my younger brothers who were in high school. Jahan Dotson's a legend from Lehigh Valley. So I always rooted hard for Jahan Dotson, but that's not really why I was so down on the Commanders yesterday when I saw this news. It was just the concept of man, you draft this guy in the first round. Some people thought it was a little bit high for Jahan Dotson anyway, but you draft him in the first round. After 2 years, the guy you think is maybe more healthy, he had injuries his first 2 years, a lot last year for sure. You think maybe he's healthy, let's see what happens, new offensive coordinator, and then you dump him and you send him to the Eagles. By the way, Lehigh Valley is Eagles country, so now he's kind of going home. The Eagles desperately were looking for a number 3 receiver. They felt like it was the last infinity stone they were missing in an offense that they think could be perhaps the best in the NFL with Kellen Moore now calling plays. So you're like, man, I know he sucked for you, but you send him to the Eagles, you send him in the division, and you don't get anything for him. You essentially get a seventh round pick, essentially, and you maybe swap some thirds, and that's all you get for a guy you drafted in the first round. You didn't even give him a chance with Jaden Daniels. I was ready to crush him. But then all that changes on a dime when you hear the report from Michael Silva that the Commanders are absolutely not out of the Brandon Aiyuk sweepstakes and that they're one of the teams that may make a trade. And on the Niners side of this, because I what was interesting to me again, not just the Commander side was interesting to me, that they may be a team that could find a way to get Aiyuk in the building. It was the fact that all options were on the table, that we had been working under, I think, a presumed assumption that there was not going to be a Brandon Aiyuk trade, that they'd come to some agreement, or maybe they just don't come to some agreement and maybe he just shows up week 1. I have a sneaky suspicion that all these guys that aren't in camp, like CD and Chase is there but not for participating. People don't understand how much guys hate training camp. It is apparently the worst thing you experience as an NFL player. It's why every year guys just randomly retire in training camp. You'll have a 25-year-old safety who you think is in entering maybe the prime of his career, he's young and then they'll just retire. You're like, wow, why did the guy retire? Because training camp sucks. It's hot. It's hard. You got coaches screaming at you. You got your teammates screaming at you. There's fights every day. Media in your face. It seems like the media is now, it seems like they're there the entire practice. I mean, we get detailed descriptions of what happens every single play essentially in practice. So it is not fun. So I have a sneaky suspicion that a lot of these guys are look, I have a plausible reason to hold out. I kind of would like some money. It's probably unlikely, especially in Jamar Chase's situation. But training camp sucks. When's the next time I can just skip training camp and it'd be fine? Probably never. Maybe one more time in my career when I get another bite at the apple. I'm not going. I think CeeDee Lamb doesn't want anything to do with this. I damn sure know Trent Williams don't want nothing to do with this. That guy's 38 years old. He's I'm not hitting pads in 100-degree heat with coaches screaming at me when I'm a Hall of Famer. I'm not doing that. So I have a sneaky suspicion that a lot of this has a lot to do with just Aiyuk being I'm not going to training camp. I'm not getting paid. Training camp sucks. Maybe I'll get paid. Maybe I won't. I'll show up week 1. But I'm damn sure not going to training camp. This is the only time I get a chance to miss this. But when I think about the 49ers situation, something just screams the end is near. And I think a lot of that to me has to do with the fact that things just don't last forever. I feel like one of the things I always think about is not just in sports, but just in life, is that when you're in the middle of something that has been kind of a staple, you get this feeling that it's just going to last forever. If you're a rap fan or a hip-hop fan, you thought the Rockefeller dynasty was going to last forever. Because why wouldn't it? They're on top of the game. It's the best thing in the world. Why wouldn't it end? You think Madonna was going to be just the greatest forever. She was as big a star as there ever was. She was popular. She was making great music. She was acting. You just thought these people would just just have a reign forever. And it just never quite works out that way. There's always going to be the peak and then the fall off. I feel like we're watching the fall off of the Niners. And I don't really care about Brock Purdy throwing interceptions in practice. I just have no idea what to make of that. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I do. But I do look at what feels like to me the end of the kumbaya era of the 49ers. And that's what I've called it for the last couple of months. It just feels like the last 2-3 years, man, this team was locked in. Besides, Aiyuk, actually not Aiyuk, Deebo Samuel, he was causing some trouble. And besides him, things were just almost too easy for the Niners. Like they kind of easily acquired Christian McCaffrey. Very few contract disputes outside of Deebo Samuel. And I don't count the Nick Bosa thing because it was not contentious. He was there every day in practice. He was engaged, and they signed him fairly quickly. That was not really an issue. And they had no problem paying him. You lose, like Jimmy Garoppolo, you lose Trey Lance, he gets hurt. You throw in Jimmy Garoppolo, he gets hurt. And then you find a way that your Mr. Irrelevant becomes an NFL star quarterback. And that just works out. Everything's just been working out. Kyle Shanahan, he's had, a great run as being one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. Everything has worked out except the ring. It's the one thing that has not fallen in their favor. And I think a lot of these guys who have been very committed, very all in, very bought in to what the Niners have been building, now I see a lot of guys asking for their handout. I see Brandon Aiyuk with his handout. I saw Christian McCaffrey with his handout. That was crazy to me, Christian McCaffrey, because that guy was already the highest paid running back in the NFL. And I'm like 75% convinced he just wanted that money to pay off his wedding to Olivia Cupo. I'm like convinced because he no one had any idea that guy had any issues with his contract. He randomly doesn't show up to OTAs. They pay him like 2-3 weeks before his wedding, and then we see all these pictures of this lavish wedding. I'm just saying. Trent Williams, again, he don't want to go to training camp. Nobody knows what his situation is. And then the lack of communication, too. We heard that the Niners, before the last few weeks, they hadn't talked to Aiyuk since May. Kyle Shanahan had no idea why Christian McCaffrey was holding out. He had no idea why Trent Williams was holding out. They don't even know what's going on. And typically, you see this after you won championships. You win championships, you have the parades. Now everybody says, okay, it's time to get my bag. It's time to get mine. Because you've bought in to the team, and now it's time to cash in. And I really don't have much of a problem with that. But that becomes a problem when you haven't actually got the ring. And you have all these guys asking for the handout, combined with how hard it is to continue to get back to that top. To continue to get to the Super Bowl and lose. And not just lose, but lose in like kind of heartbreaking fashion. Where like it kind of was your fault. Like you blew leads, you didn't know the rules. like these were not just like typical Super Bowl losses. Super Bowl losses in themselves are devastating. The Niners have had particularly devastating luck when it comes to the Super Bowl. You go to the NFC Championship game, your quarterback blows out his elbow in the first quarter. Like they all of that stuff would be hard enough to continue to keep this ring going for the 49ers. I think you combine that with now, I think guys saying, hey, I'm kind of entering the prime, or maybe I'm kind of leaving the prime of my career. Maybe it's time for me to pay up. Maybe it's time for me to skip training camp. Maybe it's time for me to skip OTAs because I don't need to do all this. When I see, to me, the Niners, it's a little different, but I'll make the analogy because I love the movie. And no, it's not Rush Hour because I'm wearing a Rush Hour t-shirt today. I love Rocky 3. Rocky 3 is my favorite Rocky. It feels like, in some ways, the Niners are Rocky in the beginning of Rocky 3, where things have been good. It seems like regardless of how bad they play in the playoffs, they're still able to beat the NFC. Like, they played terrible against the Packers, still won. Played terrible against the Lions, still won. Like, it just seemed like everything was kind of coming easy to them in the NFC, at least. And I think what we've seen this offseason is, like, Rocky, the beginning of Rocky 3. They're kind of just, like, going through the motions. They're kind of like, oh, it's all good. Like, and I think that the Lions, I think that the Packers, I think that the Eagles, I think they're clubber lang in the gym. I think that they're doing push-ups with rats, in the gym. I think they got, pipes leaking, and they're, doing crunches, screaming, getting ready. Like, those teams are hungry. I don't know if the Niners have that same hunger. I think a lot of guys looking to get paid. I think a lot of guys have bought into that system, and I think that kumbaya era of the Niners is over. 855-212-4227 is the number to call. My good friend Peter Schwartz is here with updates. Peter, what's happening?
It is great to see you. I know I told you that off the air, but it's wonderful to see you. And by the way, I would like to see the Jets contribute to that end of the kumbaya moment for the 49ers on opening night.
I'd love to see it too.
I'd like to see that very much. Let us start with baseball, and our first stop is San Diego.
Gillespie rocks and fires. And a bouncing ball to the right side. Bogarts can't get to it. That's through as well. Lindor scores to make it 6-1. RBI single for Alonso. Bogarts went to his left and could never get there. And Alonso adds another run.
Heath Rad on Mets radio. A lot of Met fans concerned about this road trip, but they started out in fine fashion. They beat the Padres 8-3. The Braves beat the Phillies 3-2, so the Braves lead the Mets by a game and a half for that third National League wildcard spot.
Should be a really good race, I think, down the stretch. A lot of Mets fans, you're right, were concerned, but the Braves fans were concerned about the series with the Phillies.
Yeah.
And both teams seem to be showing some moxie, which is going to make it fun in September, hopefully.
I think the Mets have found a little magic back again, too. I was with my son at the game the other day, and they had that walk-off with Jesse Winker, so maybe that reinvigorated the team going on to this road trip. We'll see what happens. Let's move on now to Baltimore as the Orioles took on the Astros.
2-2. And that is lined in the center field. A base hit for Shea Whitcomb. That'll score 2 as Gambles and Myers come home. A 2-run single for Shea Whitcomb. And the Astros lead is now 6-0. Whitcomb with his first big league RBIs.
That was Robert Ford on Astros radio, and the Astros beat up on the Orioles 6-0 in Camden Yards. They open up a 5.5-game lead over the Mariners in the AL West. We'll have more on the Mariners in just a moment. The Orioles are now a game and a half behind the first-place Yankees in the American League East. The Yankees beat the Guardians 6-0. Another day, another home run for Aaron Judge, his 48th of the season, and he is now, EJ, back on track, back on pace for 60 home runs.
It's incredible what he's doing. In some ways, it almost still feels like it's under the radar in a weird way. I don't know if it's maybe because the Yankees have kind of played 500 baseball, it seems like, for 3 months now. Like they've held on to that early start. They haven't necessarily fallen off a cliff, but they haven't necessarily played great baseball. But Judge, he's continuing to dominate, which has been remarkable. If he hits, I have a question. If he gets the record again, do we do the whole we're getting the ball, we're asking who's signing it? Are we breaking into college football games to show are we doing all that again for an AL record? It's not Bonds' record. It's the AL record.
Right. It's still a record. I mean, I think there'll still be a lot of people following it, and a lot has to do with the fact that just like the first time around, he was chasing another Yankee.
Yeah.
So I think now he's just basically chasing himself.
I know, which is incredible. There's part of me that wonders if it would be better for the Yankees if he does not come close to this. Like I think the Yankees, because I look at this and I'm like, the Yankees, everything is all about the postseason. Because Judge went on that incredible home run, and then all those feelings were lost once the playoffs happened. It's like
he has to do it in the playoffs,
right? So I'm like, if and I don't know if that was the reason why he wasn't able to carry that into the postseason last year, just all the pressure and everything that he went through. But it's like maybe if he just puts that aside, maybe they'll have more success. I don't know. It was 2 years ago. It was a magical run that he went on. I just wonder if maybe it would be better for the Yankees if he actually doesn't come close to this.
No way.
You want it, Ryan? You want to see?
Yes. Who doesn't want to see this?
Now you're a Yankee fan, though,
no,
right?
I'm a Mets fan.
Oh, that's different.
What do you mean?
No, because I'm talking about what's best for the future of the Yankees, not me.
Him not setting a record isn't good for business?
No, not business.
No, I think your point is that he did it the last time, and then what did it mean for the Yankees? It meant nothing when the playoffs started.
It meant nothing. And
I still want him to do it though.
Right, and you're a Yankee fan, so
yeah.
I understand the chase in the history. We all love history. We all love the fun, but especially with this organization. It is about titles. Yeah. It is about playoff success. And the last time we did this song and dance, we all got wrapped into it. And then once he was striking out in the playoffs, we were like, they're booing him. I'm not saying, I don't know. I feel like there was a chance that all that pressure that led up to him getting that record, I wonder if he kind of ran out of gas by the time the playoffs happened, or the pressure got to him a little bit. Maybe if he doesn't have that pressure, he just comes in the normal 56 home runs, Yankees in the
Normal
postseason.
56
normal
home run.
56 home runs for him.
Normal 56
Normal
home
56 home
runs.
runs. He just comes in, and then like maybe he figures it out at the end. I really do wonder if this is best for him.
I'd love to see him show up for a game wearing a Roman Reigns T-shirt that says "Levels Above." That's what I want to see him do. I want to see him show up with that T-shirt on. Let's move on to Washington.
And the pitch, swing, and a long drive to left center field. This one way back's got a chance. Going, gone, goodbye. Into the brew house, red seats up into the right of the Rockies bullpen in left center field. Bang! Zoom goes Juan Yepes with his 4th home run in the big leagues this year.
I see Ryan learned very well from Pete Pilati. I'd say Pete did a wonderful job training you. Unbelievable. Like levels above.
I mean, there have been folks that have said he's mini Pete.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's supposed to be a good thing sometimes. I think when it comes from bogus, it's not a good thing. I think he means malice when he says it. I think he should stop. I think when other folks say it, I think it's a compliment, Ryan. But
Have a great time.
So I love that we're getting John Sterling getting hit by a baseball with a home run. So I hope that stays after Pete's gone.
That was Charlie Slows, by the way, on Nationals radio. The Nationals beat the Rockies 8-3. Back to the Mariners. They fired manager Scott Service, named Dan Wilson as their new manager. The Mariners had a 10-game lead in the AL West back on June 18th, but now they've gone 20-23 since then. Wilson takes over after serving as a coordinator in the Mariners minor league system. Now to NFL preseason, the Bears beat the Chiefs 34-23. Bears defensive back Douglas Coleman III hospitalized after making a tackle during the third quarter. Bears head coach Matt Eberflus with an update after the game.
When I was on the field, standing over there on the Chiefs sideline, he was moving his limbs. He gave us a thumbs up, so that was really lifting to our football team. But I don't have anything more than that. He's at the hospital right now being evaluated. So that's all I have for him.
Coleman came over to the Bears after playing 2 seasons with Ottawa in the CFL. Obviously, prayers up for him that he'll be okay.
Absolutely. It's always one of those sobering things that you never want to see happen on a field, especially, with how physical and violent the game is. Hopefully he gets better soon.
Also, yesterday, the Colts beat the Bengals 27-14. You've been talking about this. The Commanders trade wide receiver Jahan Dotson and a 2025 fifth-round pick to the Eagles for a third-round pick and 2 seventh-round picks. Let's move on to college football. EJ, Michigan State quarterback Aiden Childs has some gambling advice for everybody as the Spartans get ready for their season opener against Florida Atlantic on August 30th. He said, if you bet, take the over. The Spartans currently an 11.5 point favorite, and the over-under is set at 46 points according to DraftKings Sportsbook. And I guess you can take that information from him in a couple of different ways.
Yes, and if I'm the defensive player on the Spartans, I'd say, hey, buddy, what do you mean by they're taking over? You're saying we can't get any stops? We're not going to be able to get it's going to be a high-scoring game. We're not going to be able to play defense? Like, what's going on?
Or does he feel like they'll easily get the 46 points by themselves?
They'll do it by themselves, maybe. This made me feel uncomfortable. Identifying exactly what is wrong with him saying that, because essentially he's trying to say this is going to be a blowout. We're going to score a lot of points. It's going to be great. On the surface, it's like, okay, not so bad. He's not saying, hey, take the under or hey, like fade us here. Like, he's not saying that, but like the fact that he's even going down the road. And I know, look, he's 18 years old. Like, I can't believe how young he is as a sophomore. If I'm the head coach, I'm pulling him aside. Say, hey, gambling references. Let's just leave that to the experts.
He's getting investigated.
It's being investigated now?
He should.
So what happened, I don't know if you guys saw, like the NFL, they grabbed Jaden Daniels and they grabbed Malik Neighbors and said, hey, sit down. You're going to have a seminar on what exactly the rules are with gambling. Because remember, they had that side bet of who's going to win Offensive Rookie of the Year. I think there was $10,000 on the line. And both the NFL, they came out with a statement that they said, we talked to the players, we talked to the players' reps, and we talked to the union. And those two players had to do a seminar this training camp, I think, to relearn the rules about gambling. So
they put out a press release about this the other day, highlighting just so everybody knows what the rules are about gambling.
Yeah, so the NFL certainly does not mess around, and that also seems similar to Childs, where it's like they're not saying, "Oh, pick Caleb Williams." Like they're suggesting that they're going to have a great season. They're essentially going to play well, just like Childs is. But again, just even going down that road is probably scary because you don't know what that could lead to. Because that didn't lead to you going on a DraftKings account and putting money. Like you just stay away from it. All athletes, just stay away from the gambling stuff, please.
Let me close with this. Who is the best team in New York right now? Best sports franchise in New York right now?
Liberty.
Absolutely. WNBA Liberty over the Wings last night, 79-71. That's 8 straight wins, and they lead the WNBA with a record of 25-4. Breanna Stewart had 19 points.
Thank you so much,
There you go.
Peter Schwartz. We'll be back with another hour with some more updates. Coming up on the show, for one team, the win-loss record doesn't matter. I'll tell you why the good, the bad, and the ugly of Anthony Richardson was on full effect last night, but why Colts fans shouldn't panic. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
Jay's back, he's limping in, but he's ready to roll. After that knee took a hit, but it couldn't take his soul. He's been down, he's been out, but now he's back on his feet. Peter Belotti's still missing, but EJ can't be beat. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Belotti's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. That knee might have tried to take him down, but EJ's the toughest guy around. He's clocking in, he's doing his time, while Peter's at home, sipping on wine. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Belotti's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. That knee might have tried to take him down, but EJ's the toughest guy around. He's clocking in, he's doing his time, while Peter's at home, sipping on wine. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Belotti's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. With every step, he proves he's strong. EJ's back where he belongs. Peter might be taking his time, but EJ's here, he's in his prime. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Belotti's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. So here's to EJ standing tall, even after that painful fall. Peter's still out, but EJ's here, back at work with the mighty cheer. Jay's back, he's limping in, but he's ready to roll. After that knee took a hit, but it couldn't take his soul. He's been down, he's been out, but now he's back on his feet. Peter Belotti's still missing, but EJ can't be beat. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Belotti's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. That knee might have tried to take him down.
One minute remaining.
Maya Leava. Maya Leava. Aya Maye Le'Iva. Aya Met.
45 seconds
Maye
remaining.
Le'Iva.
Oh! 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 Oh!
30 seconds remaining.
Oh! Oh!
15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
It was the good, the bad, and the ugly for Anthony Richardson in preseason last night. What's up? It's EJ Stewart on the Infinity Sports Network, filling in for the great Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. If you saw the first drive from Anthony Richardson playing against the Bengals second team in preseason last night, you probably were really excited. Now, we had the story yesterday about how in the joint practices, it sounded like the Bengals defensive players were getting after Richardson a little bit. They were talking trash, telling him he can't throw, telling him he doesn't want to throw, telling him he just wants to run. And it was kind of hard to determine what to make of that. It's a practice. You don't know what the teams are using, what they're hiding stuff. And, you know, I think there was some trepidation about really what to make of it, but it was entertaining. It's kind of like that one of my favorite memes. Forgive me, I don't know what movie it is. I'm sure someone's going to call in and yell at me. But that Denzel Washington meme where he's like, you see this? He's talking about a newspaper. It's 95% BS, but it's entertaining. So I read it. That's how I felt about the Anthony Richardson versus Bengals in joint practice story. I don't know. I have no idea what to make of it. It's probably 95% BS, but it's entertaining. So we talked about it. And that kind of carried into the game because the first drive, Richardson's getting the ball out quick. He's checking plays at the line, able to pick up blitzes, get the ball out, to his receivers. He was accurate. And you think, oh, this is the good. Then the bad and ugly came very quickly. Because the second drive, pick six. Third drive, missing easy throws left and right. Later was a strip sack, fumble. Didn't lose the ball. The Colts recovered. But all in all, a very uneven performance for Anthony Richardson. But if you're a Colts fan, the win-loss record doesn't matter this season. I know that hurts. I know that's tough to hear because they actually have a lot of talent. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's still one of the better running backs if he's healthy. I love that they re-signed Michael Pittman. I think he's a star. The defense is underrated, sneakily really good. But they lost their development year last year with Anthony Richardson. Like, them winning 9 games was not supposed to happen. Them competing for a division title, not supposed to happen. And I don't think it does happen if Anthony Richardson plays 17 games. Because those same mistakes you saw last night, he's probably doing in regular season games last year. In fact, he was. We saw games where he looked phenomenal. He was doing crazy athletic feats that we'd never seen. Then we saw some games where he was struggling with his accuracy. But you can't take what you're going to see this year and say, okay, it's time to move on or panic. This is not about wins and losses for the Colts this year. It's about continuing to develop Anthony Richardson, who we know is a physical specimen, who we know is a great athlete. Now you're trying to turn him into a great quarterback. That's going to take some time. Nobody loves seeing your former first-round pick throwing pick sixes to second-team players in the Bengals. But patience, Colts fans. Patience. Coming up, are the Steelers screwed?
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
There's a First time for everything Steeler fans. What's up? It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff here on the Maggie and Perloff Show. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. We ran the gambit on a bunch of football stuff. We've talked about the potential that the Commanders are back in on the Brandon Aiyuk sweepstakes. That, as I mentioned at the top of the show, is Perloff's national crisis. That man gets so upset about anything mentioning Brandon Aiyuk. It's so funny. I kind of get it, but I mean, I don't know why he gets so mad about it. He just, I know Perloff always feels like we just overhyped and overrated and Brandon Aiyuk, the impact of this story. And as we enter, or we kind of are invested in the dog days of sports summer, this has been the story that has just dominated much of the conversation. But I'm telling you, I think the Commanders should go all in on Brandon Aiyuk if they have an opportunity. I think it's not a thing of, let's see if we could swing something. Let's try. Let's give a call. They got to get this thing done. Get it done. You just lost a receiver. Maybe he wasn't good, but he was a body. And you got a rookie quarterback who loves this guy, who you want to make sure his early years in the NFL go smoothly, and you support him as much as you can. Getting him a 1,300-yard receiver is a great way to help ease him into the NFL, especially a guy he's already played with. You got to get it done. So we talked about that. We also talked about Anthony Richardson's performance last night in preseason. Kind of to maybe my surprise, like the Colts, played all their starters in a good quarter and a half of that game. Anthony Richardson got, I think, 5 drives in that game. And it was the good, the bad, and the ugly. It was first drive, smooth, quick decisions, accurate, looked great. Second drive, pick 6. And look, there may have been the receiver may have ran the wrong route. Maybe he read it wrong. I really know what happened, but either way, not good to have a pick 6 deep in your own territory. And it's just a walking touchdown, not what you want to see. So that wasn't good. He also had a strip sack. He was inaccurate pretty much from then on. It wasn't a great performance from Anthony Richardson, but I don't think it's about the win-losses for the Colts this year. I think it's about continuing to see this young guy develop. And you hope by the second half of the season, he starts to maybe look kind of like how Jordan Love looked last year, where first half, rough. Second half, you start to see that talent come through. Now that he's getting the game reps. So, as I've said, number to call in, 855-212-4227. As I always say, EJ's ducking no smokes. You want to get on the show, you want to get in on those topics, call in 855-212-4227. You could also tweet me, EJ_Stewart on Twitter/X, where Gordon014 from Vancouver tweets, good to see you back. Should be a great show. Agree with your take on the Commanders. I really think the Commanders got to make this happen. I just feel like a lot is riding on this season, I think, for the Commanders. This, to me, I know that in some ways they're supposed to be a quote-unquote rebuilding team. Rebuilding teams don't sign like 35-year-old linebackers like Bobby Wagner. Like, they signed veterans this offseason, which I didn't know what to make of it at first because I felt like they were getting guys who were good players, but I couldn't. Some guys, again, like a Bobby Wagner, very good players who would pass his prime. Typically, bad teams spending money in free agency doesn't normally go well. But considering they were just going to be ushering a new rookie quarterback who was absolutely going to start, I kind of got bringing in a lot of vets to help him out. So I was okay with that. I think if you really want to help him out, give him a star like Brandon Aiyuk, a guy that can stretch the field, a guy that he's comfortable with. I think the most important years for any quarterback you bring into your organization, particularly a rookie of those first 2 or 3 years, I think it's a make or break. We saw with the Jacksonville Jaguars, it almost broke Trevor Lawrence, putting him with that loser, Urban Meyer. We saw with the Jets with Zach Wilson, putting him behind that offensive line and no receivers. It broke that young kid. So I think Daniels has the goods, but you got to give him a chance. So they've signed some veterans, particularly offensive line, improved the defense that was terrible last year. I say go get Brandon Aiyuk and help him out. On Anthony Richardson, comment on YouTube, El Bori Cortez says, I hope AR5 has a great career. I like the kid. He's got a lot of potential and talent. I like him too, and I agree he has a lot of talent and he has potential. But it's like I said before, for him, it's about turning him from a great athlete or a great talent into a great player. And I think some people have not been happy with Tom Brady's commentary, but I think a lot of what he was talking about essentially was that when it came to the fact that rookie quarterbacks are thrust into action before they're ready, and they don't get the same kind of development in college, they don't get the same kind of development in the NFL, so the game's been dumbed down. I think he's 100% right. First of all, he's Tom Brady. Why? Who am I to say Tom Brady doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to football and athletic development? I mean, the fact that everybody's ready to say, oh, what the hell is he talking about? I'm like, I mean, he's Tom Brady. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I agree. I think he's right. So, for this season, I know there are some very lofty expectations for the Colts. I don't think people realize, maybe because the Colts are kind of an under-the-radar team, especially since Peyton Manning left, especially since Andrew Luck left. But Colts fans, for good reason, are very excited about their team. They have a lot of talent. But I just don't think this is the year for them to be worried about, let's see if we can get 10, 11, 12 games and make a run in the playoffs and surprise people. I think if you do that, fantastic. I'm just saying, please don't go crazy when you see more pick sixes from Anthony Richardson, more inaccurate throws. Like, I think he's going to have to work through some of this stuff because the guy just hasn't played much. The guy started 6 games in high school. I couldn't believe that stat when I saw that last night. I know he had not played that much football, but considering he was like a 5-star recruit, he was highly touted coming out of high school. Of course, he ended up going to Florida. He was one of their biggest recruits they've had in years, especially at the quarterback position. And the guy didn't play high school football. So about 5 starts, 6 starts in high school, 13 starts in college. He barely played last season. You got to give him time. They took a risk on him. You got to invest. You got to invest the time. So again, you can hit me up on Twitter, EJ_Stewart. Also live in the chat, both Twitch and YouTube. Infinity Sports Network's channels on there. But I want to get to the Steelers here because I think we're in for maybe the dark ages of Pittsburgh Steelers football. And I don't love that. Well, as a Jet fan, I kind of don't mind it. Jets fans, we can't stand the Steelers. They've broken our hearts plenty of times. I'm not going to be shedding tears for the Steelers, but I do feel like people don't like that term, oh, the NFL is better when this team is good, or the NBA is better when that team is good. I think it's true. I think that there are definitely colleges when it comes to college football, college basketball, professional teams when it comes to baseball, football, basketball, that the sport is definitely better when they're better. I totally think the Steelers are better. The NFL is better when the Steelers are really good and they're competing. The pageantry of just Heinz Field and the terrible towels, the rough and tumble football that they usually bring to the table. It's a great fan base, great community. I love the way the team really is part of the community there, which has become lost in professional sports. Outside of me being a salty Jets fan, there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Steelers as an organization. They're first class. But sometimes things change. I think that that's maybe the theme of this show when I talked about the Niners as well and how I think their reign in the NFC may be coming soon to an end. You can forget about all that winning season record stuff with Mike Tomlin. That's over this year. That's over. So yesterday, as the Steelers enter into their third preseason game, where I will take the leap, maybe others won't, but I will take the leap that because their offenses look so bad for the last 2 weeks in preseason, all of the starters are playing the final preseason game. And I know you may say, well, EJ, we just saw the Colts play everybody, and some teams are playing guys. Like, what's the big deal playing the third preseason game? Every team is different. I don't think any team has played all their starters all 3 games. I hate preseason football. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I'm pretty sure everybody at one point said, all right, we'll call the dogs off. You guys got the night off. That's not happening in Pittsburgh. I know Mike Tomlin's old school, and maybe say, oh, this Tomlin being old school, he wants to play all. I think that if they scored a touchdown, that some of these guys wouldn't be playing. And now we have a quarterback competition that we thought would have been resolved by now that somehow has not been resolved. You want to talk about national nightmares. That's Perloff with Aiyuk. This is Russell Wilson versus Justin Fields is my national nightmare.
It's spicy.
Because I just feel like we're arguing 2 options that we know deep down is just not going to work out for either of these guys and for the Steelers. So it feels like we're kind of wasting our time. But yesterday, as we enter the third preseason game where we're once again going to see the offensive stars at the very least, all of them play, as Russell Wilson said on Wednesday, Justin Fields, who is still vying for this QB1 spot. Remember, when this whole thing shook out and they acquired Russell Wilson and then they brought in Fields, Tomlin and the team said Wilson's QB1. Then Wilson gets hurt. He can't play a couple weeks in preseason. We see some highlights of Fields in practice. He looks kind of good, but again, it's practice. We don't know what to make of it. Then Tomlin starts to waver. Oh, well, we don't know. Yes, it's a competition. Now, all right, now we're in a competition. And we still don't have a week 1 starter. So Justin Fields is asked, hey, what do you think about what you've put on tape, and what do you think about the QB competition?
I think I've shown, what I can do. I think, the time that I did have with the ones practicing in training camp, I think that went well. I think we grew a lot each and every day, but at the end of the day, like I said, it's not up to me. So, I'm just going to come in here every day, each and every day, the same person, being a leader for this team and work my butt off, and everything else will be handled.
You notice when he said that I've shown what I can do, you notice he said in the 2 weeks of practice when I was the first team QB and Russell Wilson was hurt. He didn't want to mention those preseason games because there was also games he played where we saw the Steelers not be able to get first downs, 3 and outs, poor snaps, poor quarterback center exchanges, like just slop from the Steelers offense. He didn't mention that, but he said what he has shown he can do. He mentioned the practices where, while we don't see all the practices again, we have seen some film of him throwing some nice passes and stuff. So I found that quite amusing. But I highlight this sound from Justin Fields because I've said this before and I'll say it again. Neither of these 2 quarterbacks is going to go quietly. And that's not good because I think if the Steelers have a prayer of getting through this season, they're going to play and need both quarterbacks. Both guys have massive limitations. I think Russ physically just isn't the player he used to be. I think when Russ was able to be a true dual threat, that made him dangerous. He's always been a little questionable throwing in between the hashes. Good enough, but not great. But his running ability, his ability to extend plays, I thought made him special. He can't do that anymore. The guy can't move. And we saw how the offensive line, how bad it's looked so far, and how much that's been a struggle for the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of drafting guys, developing guys. And I don't think that's going to get really better over time. And then you got Justin Fields, who is, as he said, he's a leader. I think he's a strong-headed guy. I actually like Justin Fields. I think there's a reason why a lot of his teammates in Chicago like them. But we heard the report from Ty Dunn in the offseason about how when he was the starting quarterback for the Bears, he didn't get along with his QB room. Apparently, he couldn't stand Nick Foles. He wasn't all that cool with Andy Dalton. And the guy who normally sits in this chair, Andrew Perloff, can tell you how great a person Andy Dalton apparently is. Like, everybody seems to like him. I don't know how you have beef with Andy Dalton. But Fields, I think he's a headstrong guy. He's a guy who, this guy's been the number 1 or 2 rated quarterback in his class pretty much since like 8th grade. It's been him and Trevor Lawrence. Like, he's kind of a prodigy. And when you have that kind of almost like childhood celebrity, I think it comes with a level of, it comes with ego. And like, not necessarily bad ego, but I think it just comes with a level of gravitas, a level of confidence that I think can make it a little stiffy or stuffy in a room with other alphas. And I mean, is there another bigger alpha than Russell Wilson? And that's his backup. I mean, that's his starter. I'm sorry. That's allegedly his starter. That's the guy who's ahead of him. Like, here comes the airplane. I mean, that's the guy that he's got to get along with. He couldn't get along with Nick Foles and Andy Dalton. And that was not a QB competition. I'm supposed to expect that for an offense that I think is going to struggle, that I think is going to have problems, and a coaching staff that I think will be very blunt to Mike Tomlin about how bad they are and their struggles, and will not make things comfortable if they continue to struggle. I don't feel like this is a very good situation here in Pittsburgh. Because I also just don't, I don't buy that whoever loses this job is just going to be cool with it and they're going to be able to just move forward. You may have to get rid of one of those guys. I think that's a bad decision because I think Russ is an injury risk. And I think Fields, his confidence and accuracy comes and goes. I think it's good to have another option if you need to bench him. So one of these guys may be out of there by the time this QB competition is over. But if they're there, I don't know if Justin Fields doesn't want to wring Russell Wilson's neck by week 5 when he starts hearing those weird Mr. Unlimited and weird cliches.
Unlimited.
He don't want to hear that.
Unlimited.
He don't want to hear that in no QB room at 6 a.m. in the morning, 7 a.m. when they're doing meetings. Like, imagine that. And I think Russell Wilson gets a bad rap. I'm just going by the Russell Wilson I've seen and the Justin Fields I've heard about. It just feels like an oil and mix combination. And the fact that one guy is going to be deemed ahead of the other guy, I can't imagine that they're going to be able to get along with that. And it'd be better if one of these guys I thought actually could change the offense and change the life for the Steelers. But I really don't see it. Like, let's really play this out, guys. Steelers offense, one of the worst offenses in the NFL last season. They've been one of the worst offenses for like 5 years. I read the stats cup earlier in the week. Like, they haven't had a top 20 offense in terms of total yards in like 6 years. They always are terrible in offense. So they bring in a new offense coordinator, now Arthur Smith, who I'll put some respect on his name. He's been a decent offensive coordinator, but he's not a guy who's lighting up the scoreboard or a guy who's racking up yards. He's a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of offensive coordinator.
He had Derrick Henry too. So
generational running back.
Generational running back
to run this very remedial offense. So, and I know the Steelers got decent running back, but they don't got Derrick Henry. So like, maybe he's okay, maybe he's not. I think there's maybe question marks at least about Arthur Smith. And I don't think that even if he's good, you're going to see a Steelers offense that's lighting up the scoreboard. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback, regardless of who it is. One of them hasn't practiced in 2 weeks until recently and is now trying to get out there after being jettisoned by his old team. The other guy still kind of looks like he might be a project. What scenario do you see here where the Steelers still don't have one of the worst offenses in the NFL? I mean, maybe they get Brandon Aiyuk, and maybe that's the thing that puts them over the top. Maybe it helps them. But I don't see a realistic scenario where you're talking about a Steelers offense that is transformed, that is way more different than the offenses we've seen. Can it be better than Matt Canada's? Sure. But I think we're coming into an NFL when I don't think you can keep winning games like 16-13. Like I just, the defense is good, but I just feel like you look at the rest of the division, it's very clear they're getting laughed now. You look at the Baltimore Ravens, what they're building, they're light years better than the Steelers. Bengals didn't make playoffs last year. A lot of that had to do with Joe Burrow getting hurt. But you just see the talent they have on offense. Like, I think Steelers fans would dream to have an offense the way the Bengals have. They're lapping the Steelers. And to me, the Browns are almost like a better version of the Steelers. Like, they have a better defense. Their offense is also kind of questionable, and their quarterback is kind of questionable. But I think he's a little better than the guys they have in Pittsburgh. I think the play caller is a lot better than the guys they have in Pittsburgh in terms of Kevin Stefanski versus Arthur Smith. And I also feel like what I saw from the Browns last season, what I actually really was impressed by them was, it was stunning to me just how mentally tough they were and how much they really rallied around like Kevin Stefanski. Like, they were just a tough team. Like, when I think of Kevin Stefanski, I don't think motivator. I don't think like leader of men. I think like play caller. Like, I think, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? A guy who just call the plays and probably put you in the best position to win. But I don't think he's motivating anybody. But like, I watched those press conferences. I watched some of those like post-game locker room. Like, I thought he grew and transformed as a head coach last year. And I think the team, I don't know if maybe he kind of like molded himself in the image of the team, and that they just weren't going to be this like high-flying offensive team. They were going to be a kind of a meat and potato kind of team. But like, regardless, like, it worked. And I don't think that's going away. And I think whether it's Deshaun Watson, and then when he gets hurt in week 5, it's going to be Jameis Winston. I think regardless, still looking at a team that has more talent than the Steelers. And we talk about Mike Tomlin and this streak he's had of going, you know, all these seasons without a losing record. Times is changing. And that's history. They will not have a winning record this season. The division is too tough. There's too much to overcome. And I think while the schedule may not be brutal, I just feel like they're not the kind of team that's going to be able to run away from people. And that, I think, that's the hardest thing in the NFL, I feel like. Every week we watch these games, and you look at a schedule, a 17 game schedule, 18-week schedule, and you say, okay, W, L. Like, you just think you can just pencil in wins and W's. The NFL is so unpredictable. It's why everybody loses money in gambling. It's truly a game of inches. Games that you think will be blowouts end up being 3-point wins or field goal games. I feel like the less of those games you can have, the better. Because you're going to have a lot of them. You're probably going to have 5 or 6 of them, even if you're a really good team. The less of those you have, the better, because then, you're not the wear and tear, the pressure, all the physical intensity of playing those kind of games, it doesn't wear on you over the course of the season. I think there's a mental fatigue and a physical fatigue that comes with how the Steelers are trying to win games, which is we're not going to be able to blow anybody out because we don't have an explosive offense. We're going to play tough defense, but we're not going to have much of a room for error because our offense may turn the ball over. They may only score 10 points this week. That has worked for the last couple of years, but considering how much better the division has got and considering just where the NFL is going, I don't think you can continue to win like that because you're going to be stuck in 3-point games and 1-point games. And then there are going to be games where, or you're even playing against bad teams that you should blow out, but because your offense can't move the ball, now it's the last quarter and it's 13-10 and they got the ball and all of a sudden a game that should have been a blowout, the team's in it. They're not going to be able to run away from people. They're not going to have easy wins. Bengals are going to blow some teams out. Ravens are going to blow some teams out. Browns will blow some teams out. That's not going to happen with the Steelers. So you're going to have all these close games. You're going to have an offense that I think is, like I said earlier, remedial and not scary. I think this is the year that streak ends, and I think it kind of just, to me, it's just going to kind of crescendo in a way that's going to make it clear that both Tomlin and Steelers made a mistake coming back together. I really felt like this was the offseason for them to part ways. I think Tomlin is a great football coach. I think on another team with a new system, new offensive coordinator that's not a guy maybe he chooses even, I feel like he could have went somewhere and turned them into a winner immediately. I just feel like sometimes you're in a relationship and it's comfortable, so you stay in it, but you really know it's not going nowhere. You ain't getting no wedding ring. You're never really moving in. But you're just kind of just biding the time because it's better than the alternative, which I guess for the Steelers is not knowing who your coach is for the first time in 50 years. For Mike Tomlin, it's the unknown of a new organization. But I don't feel good about where the Steelers are. I don't know what you feel about the Steelers. Are the Steelers doomed? I kind of feel like they are. I think they're in no man's land. I think that they don't have a chance in this division. I don't think they have a chance to really crack that upper echelon of the AFC. And that's the standard. Mike Tomlin always yells, the standard is the standard. He's got to stop saying that because he keeps talking about the standard. The standard for the Steelers is championships. They have, 6 Super Bowls, I believe? That's the standard. The standard is not 9 wins. So the standard, they have not met for a long time. They have not been a credible threat for a Super Bowl in forever. So to me, I look at a team that's stuck in the middle. They're in no man's land. They're in limbo. That's the worst place you want to be. If you're going to be bad, you want to be 3-14 bad. You want to be able to get a number 1 pick, get a young, hot quarterback, get a new coach who's innovative, and you could tear the whole thing down and build it back up. Or if you're good, you want to be a team that can compete for a championship. You do not want to be we're good enough to maybe win 8 games or 9 games and get into the playoffs and lose in the first round. That's not what you want to keep, not every year. It'd be different if we were seeing some progress in Pittsburgh over the last 2 or 3 years. We have not seen that. So I feel like the Steelers are in a bad situation. I think they're in bad shape. I want to hear from you. 855-212-4227. Also, hit me up on X/Twitter, EJ_Stewart. It's been a fun show so far. First time back in the studio since I got injured. For those who listen to this show regularly, you probably already know, but ruptured my patellar tendon playing kickball with Maggie Perloff and Zach Gelb. Still unbelievable to say. When I say those words, the look I get from people, I wouldn't wish on anybody. So I'll give you guys a little mini health update on how I'm doing and when I'll be back fully in a little bit. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a
Jay's back, he's limping in, but he's ready to roll. After that knee took a hit, but it couldn't take his soul. He's been down, he's been out, but now he's back on his feet. Peter Belotti's still missing, but EJ can't be beat. He's pushing through the pain. Peter Bly's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. That knee might have tried to take him down, but EJ's the toughest guy around. He's clocking in, he's doing his time, while Peter's at home, sipping on wine. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Bly's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. That knee might have tried to take him down, but EJ's the toughest guy around. He's clocking in, he's doing his time, while Peter's at home, sipping on wine. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Bly's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. With every step, he proves he's strong. EJ's back where he belongs. Peter might be taking his time, but EJ's here, he's in his prime. EJ's back in the game, he's pushing through the pain. Peter Bly's still MIA, but EJ's here to stay. The work don't stop, the show goes on. EJ's fighting hard from dusk till dawn. So here's to EJ standing tall, even after that painful fall. Peter's still out, but EJ's here, back at work with the mighty cheer.
1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Represent. What's up? It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. You can also hit me up on Twitter/X, EJ_Stewart. I have a tweet here from Senor Pantleg. Interesting name. He says, Pittsburgh fan deserves a taste of humility. They've had it too good for too long. Is Senor Pantleg one of them Jet fans I was talking about that is happy to see the Steelers kind of spinning their wheels here? He might be. Because I said earlier, like, I don't feel bad for the Steelers just because as a Jet fan, seeing their success, and whenever the Jets had success, somehow they ran into the Steeler machine and lost. Seeing them be this kind of middling, going nowhere team doesn't necessarily bring me sadness, but I think the Steeler nation, the Pittsburgh community, and how the Steelers in the community rally around each other, I think is great for the NFL. I think it's always a great visual seeing those like December big, games in Heinz Field with the terrible towels going, or playoff games. I think it's just or seeing the Steeler nation just take over other stadiums in playoffs. I think it's all great. Like, that's a great part of the NFL. It's one of the reasons why the NFL is great. But Jets fans may not feel, or other teams who have been burned, and certainly those AFC North teams. I know Bengals fans, Browns fans, Ravens fans, definitely not shedding a tear for where the Steelers are right now. But I just look at them. I don't see a team that's going anywhere. How do you look at that division and say, oh yeah, no, Steelers definitely still near the top, still holding serve with the likes of Lamar Jackson. Like, think the star power. And I know they have stars on defense, but the star power on these other teams. We're talking about Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Myles Garrett, Jamar Chase. We're talking about just studs. And they got TJ Watt, and they got Cam Hayward's a little older. Minka Fitzpatrick's good, but like they're clearly not as good. They're clearly not good enough.
The only thing you can say is that they have magic, and Mike Tomlin will find a way. It just happens every year.
But I'll be honest though, Ryan. Like, even if they find a way, finding a way is still 9 games. Finding a way for the Steelers used to be 11, 12 games and making the playoffs, or sometimes maybe winning 9 or 10 games, but still going to the Super Bowl like they did when Jerome Bettis and them got him his only Super Bowl, and they got one for the thumb. Like, that used to be Steelers finding a way. Steelers finding a way used to be when you think the chips are down, they still find a way to go to the Super Bowl, win championships. Now them finding a way is like Mason Rudolph taking them to the playoffs and losing in the first round and not being competitive at all.
I just think their floor compared to last season is a lot higher with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Anything is better than Mason Rudolph or Kenny Pickett.
I totally agree with that, because I famously on this show said that Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett was like comparing, week-old lasagna and a McRib and which one you wanted for dinner. So, I mean, yes, this is definitely better. But I think now we're probably talking with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. They're probably talking about a Celeste pizza and like a $10 steak from Sizzler, something like that. It's better. It's better, but you're not eating good. Let's put it that way. So I think that's just the problem with the Steelers. I can't see them completely. Like, there was a chance last year, given how their quarterback situation, they won 9 games. They probably should have won 5. Let's be real. They probably should have won 5.
That's when you have a defensive player of the year, though.
Right. You got Watt. You have a great defense. Like, that gets you to 9. And then Tomlin and just they fired Canada. Like, they did things to get them to 9. They probably 5 is probably not they're probably not that, because they'll find some wins. But so maybe the floor is 7. But I think the ceiling is 9. And that feels like a best case scenario to me. I don't see a scenario where they're winning 10, 11 games. And if you're talking about your ceiling is 9 games, I'm not saying everything goes right. Well, what could go wrong? In a QB room with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, I'm telling you, a lot can go wrong. And a lot probably will go wrong. Also, we got the legendary Moist Pork reaching out on social media, Twitter/X. EJ Stewart, as a Browns fan, he's saying he's a Browns fan, not me. As a Browns fan, I relish a Steelers' dark ages. It's about time another team in that division has misery. Yeah, well, the rent is certainly due on that, Moist. Because how long has it been your team that's been the team that's been the misery team in the NFC North? Or AFC North. I keep mixing up these conferences today. The AFC North. It's been the Browns. They've almost always been the team. At least especially in this new modernized divisional setup. They've been the team that struggled. And I do think that the Steelers are shaping up to maybe be that bottom feeder. which is not great for the NFL. Certainly not great for Steeler Nation. But I know there are Steeler fans who probably like, no, EJ, Steelers, Mike Tomlin, what we have, like the first class organization we have, we're going to find a way. And I want to hear from you. 855-212-4227. Great Peter Schwartz is with us now with updates. Peter, what's happening?
EJ will start in New York this hour, and you know who did it again.
The pitch. Swing and a fly ball deep down the right field line. Brennan's only going to watch. It is gone onto the porch. Aaron Judge. He strikes again as he turns up the slug in the fourth. Home run number 48. 1-0 Yankees.
Justin Shackle, Yankees radio. The Yankees were off and running. They beat the Guardians 6-0, and the Orioles lost to the Astros 6-0. So the Yankees now lead the Orioles by a game and a half in the AL East. Now to Pittsburgh, where Paul Skeens was dealing.
Here's an 0-2, swing and a miss, another strikeout. 9 strikeouts for Skeens.
Yeah, only twice has he failed to strike out at least one per inning in a start. He's a strikeout pitcher. He's racking them up here tonight.
Call on Pirates radio. Pirates win. They 7-0. Paul Skeens tossing 6 scoreless innings, giving up 2 hits while striking out 9 after that little slump he was in. He's back on track.
It's good. That you want to talk about things good for baseball. I talk about things good for the NFL and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Pirates and Skeens continuing to still, like him being still the star that he was first half of the season. That needs to continue, so it's good to see him back on track.
Absolutely. Pirates over the Reds 7-0. Now to St. Louis.
Arenado's on his own. The 0-2 pitch is lined into left field for a hit. He drives in the third, Cardinal run. And Arenado fist pumps over at first base. He's feeling it, and the Cardinals feeling it here in the 7th. A 3-run inning that scores Burleson. And RBI number 60 for Nolan Arenado.
Ricky Horton on Cardinals radio. Cardinals over the Brewers 3-0. Other games yesterday, Mets beat the Padres 8-3. The Braves over the Phillies 3-2. You had the Blue Jays over the Angels 5-3. Miguel Amaya had a grand slam, and the Cubs 10-2 win over the Tigers. The Mariners fired Scott Service, replaced him with Dan Wilson. Wilson had been the Mariners coordinator in their minor league system. He's a longtime catcher for the Mariners. Seattle was up by 10 games in the AL West June 18th, but now 20-23. Time for a change in Seattle.
Are the Mariners cursed? I feel like we talk about some of these other teams. We talk about the Jets. We talk about the kind of the usual suspects, the Browns, in all professional sports. I feel like for some reason we don't talk about the fact that the Mariners, one playoff appearance in 21, 22 years. No World Series rings, and it feels like here, like where you had a season where it looked like the Astros were just buried. Early in the season, it looked like the Astros were not going to be a playoff team this year, definitely not a division winner. And you blow this lead, and now you're not out of it, but I can't see the Mariners making this ground up, especially with the way they're hitting.
No, and by the way, I can't believe I have brought myself down to the level of having to root for the Astros this weekend.
Whoa, what?
Ryan didn't like to hear that.
What?
They're playing the Orioles.
Yeah, but still, one series is not going to kill you.
I want to win the East. Take care of business first. Let's get through the weekend. Let's get at least a 3-game lead on the Orioles. I have to root for the Astros this week.
I think Peter Schwartz is right. I think
what?
I'm sorry. I know I'm not.
I don't usually hear that.
I don't. I'm not. I tell you what. I normally don't,
especially at home from my wife.
Same here. Trust me. I would say this like. I have no personal stakes in the Yankees-Astros beef, but I do feel like when it comes to any kind of playoff positioning, if it helps your team's playoff positioning, you have to put all beefs aside, including with the Astros. I'm sorry.
No,
he's right.
No.
Like you got to root for the Astros to beat the Orioles.
If you do your job, you will succeed.
No, if you do your job, all you will do if the Orioles hold their own, it just hold serve. Nothing changes.
That works. You're still in first place.
No, you prefer.
Yeah, but you're not going to win every single game the rest of the season. You're going to have to get some help here.
You always got to prefer,
but not from the Astros.
That you gain games. So
I don't care who.
You'd rather.
I'd rather win myself as a sweep of team, and have my arch rival, your nemesis, who you despise, who you can't beat in the playoffs, Proceed to lose.
But Ryan, that's not the point now. The point now is to beat, to get back what the Orioles took from us last year, and that's the AL East. So we need to knock them out. Listen, my wife and my kids are Met fans. I'm the only Yankee fan in the house. I took my son to the Met. We went to both games on Wednesday.
Yep.
I cheered like a Met fan when Jesse Winker hit that home run.
You have to.
Like, I literally blended in with everybody cheering for the Mets, which is not usually my cup of tea. But you got to do what you got to do.
Look, Yankees had that big series in Philly a month ago. Like, they have those big wins. Like, yeah, as a Mets fan, I'm one of those Mets fans that I do feel like the Yankees are a rival. I think that if you're a Mets fan that's saying that they're not, you're lying. You're absolutely lying. So I treat the Yankees as a rival. They're playing the Phillies. And you're trying to gain ground in NL East that at that time maybe starting to look a little like maybe the Mets could do something. Absolutely. Please beat the Phillies in heartbreaking fashion. You have to put all that aside.
I said the same thing to my family, what they said to me after that Yankee-Philly series this week. I said, thank you.
There you go.
There you go. That's it. The Dodgers designated Jason Hayward for assignment. NFL preseason, you had the Bears over the Chiefs 34-21, the Colts over the Bengals 27-14. Now, this story from Las Vegas yesterday, EJ, everybody's got their expectations on their favorite teams, right? Doesn't matter how old you are. Could be adults like us, kids, whatever. So Nick Walters, KTNV, the ABC affiliate in Vegas, was talking to fans at a Raiders game, came across a 10-year-old Raiders fan about the expectations for this season.
You're so into the NFL. You know your Raiders, I can tell right here. How are you feeling with the team this year?
We're not going to the Super Bowl. I already know it.
We got a realistic Raiders fan here. This is odd. This is the first interview I've ever had like this. The Super Bowl chances are not good, but what is it going to take for the Raiders to have a successful season, you think?
Not to get arrested.
Okay, that's definitely an interesting one. I would agree with that. Yeah, getting someone in prison, that's going to hurt the chances.
Now,
where's the lie? Let's be real.
EJ, if you asked my kids, what would it take for the Jets to have a successful season? I mean, the right answer would be for Aaron Rodgers to stay healthy, right? Sure. That's number one. So this young man with it's being honest, like not get arrested.
Let's be again, there's no lies here. This is an organization that has unfortunately had key players get arrested during the season. An organization that nobody thinks is going to the Super Bowl. Sounds like a very realistic kid. I like this kid. I like this sports fan. I think we need more sports fans like this. We can't.
Sad?
Yeah, not sad.
Realistic,
right?
Knowledgeable,
right.
Realistic.
Because we have too many fans, and look, as someone who works in sports radio, we all three of us do, we hear from very unrealistic people. I'm sure I'm going to get a call about how the Panthers are going to make the playoffs this year.
I'd rather be delusional than depressed.
I don't think he's depressed. I watched the video. I think he's like as a young man, he knows he has a lot of years left because this kid must have been like 9 years old.
He's 10.
He's 10? He's 10 years old. I think he's like, look, I got a lot of years left. I'm in this for the long haul. I can't be wrapped up in we winning a Super Bowl this year. You can't get you got.
He's a kid. He's
right.
a kid.
That's why he has to. This is the time to be like, I got time here. We're not good. Let's just not get arrested. Let's just not embarrass the organization, which we've done too many times. Let's just get through this season, and we'll see what happens next year. I'm totally fine with this. This was the kind of fan we need. The fact that this gives me hope for the youth that we're moving in the right direction. We have young kids like this.
Outstanding. Iowa head coach Kirk Ferentz and assistant John Budmeier suspended for the Hawkeye season opener as part of a school-imposed penalty for a recruiting violation in late 2022. Probably shouldn't matter. They're probably playing some tomato can team in the first game of the season anyway.
I will say this. Regardless of whether Kirk Ferentz is there or not, they're probably not scoring more than 20 points. So I'm not sure how much will really change whether Kirk Ferentz is on the sidelines or not. I did appreciate his apology, though. Rare you get an apology when it comes to violations.
And Keegan Bradley has the lead after 2 rounds of the BMW Championship. There you go.
Thanks so much, Peter Schwartz. Coming up, it's time to end the charade, NFL. You know what I'm talking about. It's DJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Actually, don't bring them out. Keep them away. Keep them back at their facilities. Keep them back in the locker room. It's time to end the charade of preseason football. What's up? It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff here. Number to call in 855-212-4227. As I was getting ready for this show, you start to think, it's always weird when you're hosting a show. At this is a weird time of year to host a show because we're a couple of weeks away from the start of the season, NFL wise. And honestly, I'll say college football wise because week 0 sucks. But you're a couple of weeks away, and it's a drive by, and then who knows when you'll be hosting again. So sometimes you're like, all right, what do I do? Am I giving NFL season predictions, or do I just hold that, or whatever? What do you do? It's such a weird time with the preseason, and I'm sitting there, and what I'm about to tell you guys is the thing that I got yelled at about this so much. I think last year, 2 years ago, I tweeted this out. I had NFL agents tweet at me being like, "You're an idiot." So I preface that by saying, please don't get mad at me when I say this. But preseason football needs to be abolished. Done. Kaput. Finished. Get rid of it. We have moved past the need for preseason football. And I know we all love football. I know we're addicted to this sport. It has some flaws. It's violent. There's a lot of unscrupulous gambling that goes involved. It's not pretty, some of it, but you know what? There's a lot of beauty in the game, and it's America's pastime at this point. It's definitely not baseball for sure. But preseason football is not those things. Preseason football is not beautiful. Preseason football is not America's pastime. Preseason football is not any of the things we love about real football. And what I hate about this time of the year, because it's one of my least favorite times of the sports calendar, is it's the ultimate tease of football is back. And you heard that probably until your ears bled a couple weeks ago when the first preseason game started. It was like, football is back, everybody. Hey, football is back. Oh, look, we got football. Hey, get ready, guys. Football is back. Football is not back, okay? Watching Sam Ehlinger run around for his life for 3 quarters is not NFL football. Watching Joe Milton miss targets left and right is not NFL football. And what I think bothers me so much about preseason is the entertainment value is so bad and it's so poor that it's a disgrace and it's a disservice to what NFL football actually is. And I think we've moved to a point now where there was a time when I grew up where preseason football wasn't great, but teams took it seriously. Usually you had 4 preseason games back in the day. Starters played 3 of them. Usually you had first game, maybe they play a series. Second game, maybe they play a quarter. Third preseason game, you were seeing a half, sometimes 3 quarters from your first team offense and first team defense. You got a semblance of some decent football. You started to see teams, start to see what they were doing. You got to see stars play. It wasn't the greatest in terms of, the aesthetic because you were seeing teams hiding stuff, but it was still fun to watch. There's nothing fun about watching Joe Burrow with his frosted tips on the sideline talking about when he's going to get a haircut or not. Okay, and I appreciated, last night for the Colts, I appreciated them having Anthony Richardson out there for a little bit because it was a little entertaining to watch the stars go out there and play. But that's so few and far between. There are teams who are never going to play their stars in this preseason. The Jets are not playing anybody. They have decided no starter has played this entire preseason. They won't when they play the Giants this weekend. And they're not the only team. There are a lot of teams who are doing that same thing. We've just moved past the need for preseason football. NFL teams have now taken the joint practices as their preseason games. The starters are getting 20, 30, 40 reps against another first team. In fact, if I was the NFL, I'd abolish preseason and just televise the joint practices. College football does it. We see spring football. People love it. People watch. People go to the games. Why can't we do that for the NFL? Abolish preseason.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
Hour 3 on the Maggie and Perloff Show. EJ Stewart, executive producer of the Maggie and Perloff Show, filling in as host today. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. I have grave concerns that one of our NFL organizations is about to make a decision that's going to have negative ramifications that could last a decade. And I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying that, because I have seen it with my organization and other teams as well. Before we get to that, I want to get to the phone lines again. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. We were talking a lot about the Steelers last hour. Justin Fields saying, hey, I've shown them what I could do, which I'm like, really? Preseason game didn't look that good, so if that's what you got, then I'm a little concerned. I just look at a Steelers organization, I see a Steelers situation that I don't think reads elite. I don't think it reads top tier. It reads mid to me. It reads we're getting lapped. I see the other division teams getting better. I see the star power in the other divisional teams. I don't see the Steelers having a snowball's chance in hell of winning this division. And I don't think this is a one-year thing. I think because they're stuck in limbo, this is going to be a prolonged suffering for the Steelers. I don't know when they get back to being one of the premier franchises in the NFL. Call in 855-212-4227. I want to get to my good friend Andy, who is in Pittsburgh, wants to talk some Steelers. What's up, Andy? Good to hear from you, man.
Hey, I think the Steelers are going to go 14-3 because I'm a lifelong Seahawks fan, and I've seen Russell Wilson enough to know he's going to come out and put on a show. His back's against the wall, and everything, and it's just going to be like that. I mean, I've seen this before with him, and I think that's what they're going to do, 14-3. Even though I got to live with these Steelers fans up here, they're surprised I'm saying that, but I know Russell Wilson.
That's interesting. Andy, so you're a Steelers fan in Pittsburgh. Before I get to your take on how did that happen?
Well, I grew up in southern West Virginia near where Kurt Warner, the running back for Penn State, not the quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom's a Penn State grad,
and
he
was like a hometown hero when I was a kid down there, so I rooted for him ever since.
That's what's up. That's cool. I actually really think that's neat because that's something we see a lot from younger fans. Like younger fans today, Andy, they'll say, I became a fan of this team because I love this player. And a lot of older fans actually don't like that, but I think it's neat. Like all my brothers, we all grew up in New York City. I'm the only Jet fan or anybody who roots for New York teams. Like my brother, he's a Viking fan because his favorite player was Randy Moss. My other brother, his favorite player was, Drew Brees, so he's a Saints fan. And they stick with their teams, which I think is really neat. So I think that's really cool, Andy. But I have one question for you. I know you said you know Russ and you know what he's like when his back is against the wall. But, I mean, hasn't his back been against the wall for 3-4 years now? I mean, he might as well be like the Shadow Cat in X-Men. He might be through the wall at this point. I mean, back against the wall last year in Seattle, they didn't get it done. Back against the wall year one in Denver when there was all these expectations, did he get it done? Last year playing for his career in Denver, did he get it done? I mean, his back has been against the wall at this point, Andy. I mean, why now is going to be the difference where he turns it around?
Because if he don't come through this year, he's just going to be a career backup next year, or may not be in the league. But I think he's going to put on a show, and some team will give him a $200 million contract, or he'll at least get the Baker Mayfield deal, 3 year and $100 million.
Okay, I think Baker Mayfield deal I can see. The 200, seeing the face of my good friend Ryan Botcher behind the glass, his face contorted in ways that I've never seen before. Andy, thank you so much for the phone call. When he heard he was going to get a $200 million, Ryan's face did things I just haven't seen body parts do, probably since my knee exploded on a kickball field, honestly.
There's no way Russell Wilson is making another $200 million contract.
Yeah, that's unlikely. I have a question for you. Before I even get into like what the other stuff Andy had to say, what do you think Russell Wilson would have to do to get a $200 million contract, Andy? I mean,
sign a broadcasting deal? Probably that.
Honestly,
even still, nobody wants him.
That's a good answer. Like that would probably be, because what did Tom Brady get? 300?
Close to that, right?
I mean,
but Russell Wilson, Tom Brady,
here's the thing:
$50 million.
I think there's a scenario where maybe if Russell Wilson wins a Super Bowl and then retires, maybe he gets $200 million from a broadcast. Like that. No. That's the scenario.
His personality is so bad.
But you would have the reigning Super Bowl winning quarterback who left on top, he's a star personality. Like we might not like him, but like he's a celebrity. Like, people who don't know football know Russell Wilson because of his relationship, his marriage with Ciara. So
There's a higher % chance he has a reality TV show with Ciara than him becoming an NFL broadcaster.
he can make money with that too. Not $200 million money, but good money.
It's more likely that he does that than commentate NFL.
I don't know.
That's how I see Russell Wilson.
I tell you what, I
Reality
think he'd be dumb if he did that, because there was a time when Russell Wilson was not this punchline in terms of his personality. Like, he's always kind of been who he is. I don't want to say, he's a lot of people say he's corny. I actually think this is who he is. I think he's just a very corny guy, maybe naturally. But like, he's been this way for a long time. It's just only recently when he started playing poorly that then his Seahawks teammates and former teams were like, hey, this guy sucks, and we hated him this whole time, even when he was good. That he is now, and then he really struggled in Denver, was when we really started to get Russ is like this corny guy. If he goes to do reality TV, it may be entertaining, but I think for his personal psyche and like what he's been through, like, he's always been able to lean on being a professional athlete and being an elite athlete. If he's only leaning on his personality, which a lot of people don't like, that the reaction to that he can maybe block out as a pro athlete, he can't block out as a reality star. So that would be, I think you're right in that's probably the more likely route for him because he's a celebrity. But I think he'd be better served just covering football because, hey, look, there's no better place where cliches and canned statements are welcomed than an NFL broadcast booth. Like, yes, the great ones don't do that. The John Maddens, don't do that. But like, there are a million other guys who do games every Sunday that do, and you can make good money and be fine and have a great living, as long as you're not super boring like Jason Garrett or someone like that. Like, you could do this for a long time, just being weird cliches and being Russell Wilson. It lines up well. I do think his personality, though, I don't think he would want to do it.
He's boring. I'm sorry. He's just boring.
I don't find the thing about Russ for me is I don't find him either offensive or someone like I enjoy. Like,
he's just turkey sandwich. It's like plain.
I don't even find him boring. I just think that, like, I don't know. I feel like maybe I identify with, like, I've seen this kind of person before. Here's who Russell Wilson is to me. Like, I feel like I went to Catholic high school. You did too. We went to actually in the same orbit, so to speak. Not the same school, but same league, technically. Like, I've seen a lot of brothers like Russell Wilson. He seemed like a private school athlete. Like, cliche. He seems to have like a very comfortable background. Maybe not the most aware of like what his things about his personality be grading. As a fellow Catholic high school athlete, I just feel like I've seen this person a zillion times. So it doesn't bother me. It's just like I've seen this person. But like everyone else who doesn't maybe deal with these folks are like, why is this guy like this? And why is he like this at age 35? I can't answer that per se, but I guess to me that's why I don't mind him. And I wouldn't mind him if he was doing football games. I just feel like he would have trouble if he did a reality show and like his personality was all he had. That, because then I think there'd be more of it. People would get more upset. I think he would be able to not be able to avoid it, and that'd be a problem. But on to Andy's point about the Steelers and Russ having this back against the wall situation. Like 13 games, I mean, God bless you. If you could find them, you could find 13 wins. God bless you. I look at just this Steeler team, and it's like I said earlier, you just gotta have some layups on the schedule. We always give team layups. We give some of the best teams layups. Like, who would have thought last year that the Chiefs were going to go on Christmas Day at home and get blown out by the Raiders? Not one person. There is not one person, definitely not that 10-year-old kid who we heard from, the Las Vegas Raiders fan, who said, we ain't winning the Super Bowl, and our only chance this year is to not get arrested. Like, he damn sure wasn't picking the Raiders to beat the Chiefs before the season that year. But, like, there are so many games that are going to be unpredictable. There's so many games that you think you have that are going to end up being very tough games, especially division games, and they play in a very tough division. I just look at the Steelers and I say, like, they're not going to get easy wins. Like, they're just not going to blow people out because their offense, I just don't see the forest through the trees here. I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think Arthur Smith, even a good offense that he runs, is going to be very average. And it's almost average by design. Arthur Smith is conservative. Arthur Smith doesn't like turnovers. Arthur Art Smith likes to run the football. And his thing is, don't beat yourself and then take the big shots when we can. And it worked well for the time he was in Tennessee. I think that I always say I thought he was underrated in Tennessee because I was like, I know they don't put up a lot of points, but like given their lack of talent outside of Derrick Henry, like the fact that he has them winning games and moving the football regularly is pretty impressive. So I actually kind of like him as an offensive coordinator overall in terms of whatever your team is. I just feel like this team, because they don't have a Derrick Henry, and because this is an offense that's new, where either you have a quarterback in Justin Fields, who I think in some ways is still developing, or Russell Wilson, a guy who's coming to now his third offensive system in 3 years. He went to the Nathaniel Hackett system, couldn't hack it, no pun intended. Went to Sean Payton. Sean Payton couldn't stand him, and now he's with Arthur Smith. By the way, those are three coaches could not be more different offensively. Like I'm trying to think of three offensive coaches. Like that is, you go from Nathaniel Hackett, kind of a bozo. Offense, is a lot of the quarterback really has to like change things and fix his mistakes in order for it to work. Like that's what Aaron Rodgers has done for like 15 years with Nathaniel Hackett. Like, so you have that offense where it's all on the quarterback in their brain and their abilities to kind of like translate what the vision of what Nathaniel Hackett wants to do and fix it on the fly. And then you got Sean Payton, timing, precision, no frills, accuracy is utmost importance. It's important in every offense, but like you if you miss those layups in Sean Payton's offense, like you just don't have a shot. You don't have a shot. Like then you have that offense. Now you go to Arthur Smith, ground and pound, a lot of hand the football off, and then taking shots in play action, hoping that you hit home runs in that way. You're not going to be able to throw the ball 30, 40 times, get into a rhythm. You're talking about 25 throws, maybe 30 throws tops. A lot of it conservative stuff, and then you got to hit your home runs. It's just three entirely different systems. Now he's an NFL scholar at this point, Russell Wilson. Like he knows offensive football left and right because he's been in the NFL so long. But you're talking about three different offenses in 3 years. Now I got him with a new team. He's gonna have to figure that out. I don't see where is this Steeler offense turning around. I don't see it. Like I like Jaylen Warren. He's pretty good. The Steelers don't seem to like Najee Harris that much. I think he's okay, but they didn't pick up his option, so they seem to be fine with him maybe walking out the door this year. And I actually think George Pickens is a little overrated. Like everyone talks about how great this guy is. I know his offenses have sucked. I know he hasn't had the best quarterbacks. I haven't seen the production. I haven't really seen the consistency like I've seen maybe from a Garrett Wilson, where he's been in a bad offense, but I've still seen enough consistency to be like, okay, yeah, if he was in a better offense, he'd be maybe the best receiver in the NFL. Pickens, I feel like he's a talented player who's in a terrible offense, so he has no shot. And if he was on a better offense, we could maybe see what he can be. So I think there's still, like, I don't say question mark, but I don't know if he's an absolute number one receiver. And I don't really think the rest of their guys are all that talented in terms of their pass catchers. So I don't see the weapons. Offensive line's horrible. Like, where is this Steeler team turning into a division winner? Where is this Steeler team turning into a team that's competing for a championship? And then I think that they're going to be able to continue this streak of this 9 wins, barely make the playoffs, stay out of losing records in this division is not happening. It's too good. How do you look at the Bengals roster, the Ravens roster, the Browns roster, and say the Steelers are just going to find a way through osmosis to somehow keep winning 9 games and making the playoffs? Not going to happen, especially when you got other teams in the conference who are also getting better. The Jets may have something to say. Dolphins may have something to say. Bills may have something to say. There's other good teams, too, that they have to leapfrog to keep winning these 9 games every year. Certain point is going to run out. I think the luck runs out here. 855-212-4227. There's an NFL team. I'm warning you. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're getting a lot of pressure. It's what the fans want. And the temptation is there. But don't do it. Who am I talking about? I'll tell you guys after the break. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
6:20 Eastern here on the East Coast. ZJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. You can also hit me up on Twitter /X, EJ_Stewart. I read tweets on the air, as long as it's not weird OnlyFans spam accounts or you cursing me out, calling me an idiot. You can call me an idiot, just don't curse me out, because then I can't read on the air. Ryan will have to hit that dump button, so that won't work. So hit me up. As I always say, there's only 2 commandments on an EJ Stewart hosted show. EJ will always keep you 100 with you. EJ's ducking no smoke. I believe sports radio is not quite a participation in, spectator sport. It can be, but audience interaction is welcomed and encouraged. So call in 855-212-4227 or hit me up on Twitter /X. Also, make sure if you want to watch the show and you want to make comments there, I'm reading those comments as well. Watch the show on YouTube, youtube.com/Infinity Sports Network. Also, follow us on Twitch as well. The show is streaming on our Infinity Sports Network page there. Don't do it, Patriots. I'm sorry. Don't do it. And sometimes the reality of doing this show as the executive producer is I sit here and I watch Goat Gray, as I'm calling Maggie now that she's been identified as one of the top women in media, which is obvious. I mean, she's a star. Awesome. I'm watching the radio legend, McLovin, every day do his thing. I'm watching these two say things, and I hear something, and I go, ugh. And I don't mean the, Maggie just spelled out a curse, or, Perloff is not, didn't hear what Bogus just said. I don't mean that. Yes, that does happen as a producer, but I don't necessarily mean that. What I mean is I hear a take, and I go, ugh. And yesterday's show, I did hear both of them co-sign starting Drake Maye week 1 for the Patriots. And I'm warning New England, don't do it. Please don't do it. I feel like the Flash in Justice League, which was terrible by the way, but he runs back from the past, he's yelling at Bruce Wayne, don't do it. Lois is the key. I feel like I'm the guy from the future who's already seen what happens when you start rookie quarterbacks in terrible situations who are not ready, who are raw, and how that ruins players. And I look at what's happening in New England, a job that it appeared, again, similar to Pittsburgh, where in offseason it was Jacoby Brissett's QB1. There's no question about it. We're not really concerned about Drake Maye starting immediately. That said, that's smart. But we're moving closer to week 1. You heard yesterday Drake Maye asked if Jacoby Brissett's the starter. He said, I'm not 100% sure. So I was like, that's an interesting way to put that there. He's not convinced. You had Gerard Mayo basically being like, yeah, man, Drake Maye, he can run a huddle. Absolutely. And I'm thinking, I see this yesterday. I'm like, oh, no. They're going to do it, aren't they? And then I heard this from Alex Van Pelt, their offensive coordinator, on Drake Maye.
Yeah, he's taking steps forward every single day. That's the big thing. There's no regression. He's taking what he's learned from the previous practices and applying it to the next practice. He's been really impressive, last few weeks especially. Really impressive the last few weeks. Now, if you remember when training camp started, Ryan, the word was he has a lot of work to do. That's a quote from Gerard Mayo. That's not me embellishing or me he said he's got a lot of work to do. They saw that guy throwing around passes, getting picked off, not knowing the offense, being like, he's got a lot of work to do. Now, 3 weeks later, maybe it's because they seen Jacoby Brissett run that offense, and it looked very I can't even say mid. It looks garbage.
Maybe it's not the quarterbacks, and it's just the talent around them.
There's something to that, Ryan. And that gets to my point here. Drake Maye, he probably has improved. I like Drake Maye. I think he was definitely not one of the top 2 quarterbacks in this draft. I probably have him 3. But honestly, I've really been impressed with Bo Nix. I was not a Bo Nix guy, and apologies to the Oregon faithful. I think I either did a show or maybe I was behind the glass, and I said something about Drake Maye, and they just buried me. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys really love Bo Nix, And they buried me. I was like, oh my God, you guys really love Bo Nix. I like him, but I don't know. The system helped him, I think, in Oregon. But I've been really impressed, and I'm starting to come around on that. I think that's a good fit there. So maybe he's QB4. I think I'm not a J.J. McCarthy guy. So, but I think Drake Maye has a shot because the physical tools are there. But despite playing a lot of football, for some reason, he's still kind of raw. And I feel like I have a little authority to say this only because I follow the ACC very closely as a Miami Hurricanes fan. And honestly, I think Drake Maye should probably thank the Miami Hurricanes for his draft status. Because I think his ability to beat us every year he was there and have some really good high-profile games against Miami, I think certainly helped his draft stock. That tape damn sure didn't hurt him in terms of whether or not he was going to be drafted high in this draft. So I feel like I've seen little Drake Maye both against Miami, but just against other teams because I'm following the ACC. And, like, the kid's got really good arm. He's very accurate. He seems like a high-character guy. But I think he's still raw. I think he's still going to be a guy that needs some time to develop. And the last thing this kid needs is to be thrust into what is a roster that legit could win 1 or 2 games this year. Like, if they lost 16 games or 15 games, that would not be a surprise at all. He's going to one of the worst rosters, if not the worst roster in the NFL, where offensive line is actually not terrible, but not top tier. Zero help with the receivers. Zero. I mean, you watch these games, and last year, watching the preseason, it's like these receivers are glued to the DBs. They get zero separation. This is a kid that has struggled sometimes with accuracy and struggled a lot with timing. And Bill Belichick did a great job, I think, of pointing that out when he did his draft breakdown during the NFL draft. These guys get no separation. It's bad enough in the NFL. The one thing all quarterbacks say when they say, what's the difference between the NFL and college? The first thing they say is speed of the game. But let's get that out because it's not even a cliche answer. I think it's true. But, like, that's what everybody says. The other thing they always say that I think people forget is they're like, the lack of separation the receivers get in the NFL is so much different in college. In college, you're throwing into big windows. You just get the ball there, the guy will catch it, and like it's just different, guys. Especially when you're playing. He played at North Carolina, so it wasn't like he's playing at Alabama where he's not playing with Devontae Adams and Jalen Waddle, where they're just there's just like 10 yards separation. I mean, that's why I think when we talked about evaluating someone like Mac Jones, I think that was something that got lost in the shuffle. It's like he's throwing to guys that are wide open, like anybody can make these throws. But he played at North Carolina, so it wasn't like he was playing with superstar guys and they had just such an athletic advantage. But typically, it's just a lot easier to find guys open. Like, you are throwing to guys that are open. In the NFL, you throw guys open. Guys don't necessarily get open. You have to throw it to spots, throw it to windows that make them open because there's so much speed, there's so much talent on the defensive side of the ball that guys just don't get that kind of separation. So you're telling me a quarterback who, like I said, needs to improve his accuracy, needs to improve his timing, who at the start of training camp they said had a lot of work to do, and is now playing with the bottom of the NFL roster, and I didn't even throw in the big one, which is he's the real heir apparent to Tom Brady. I know with the Mac Jones thing, I don't think Patriot fans even really believe that he was the guy. I'll be real. I think they had to talk themselves into that. The Patriots, maybe they did believe it. I don't know. I don't think Bill Belichick believed it because he seemed like he hated that kid as soon as he got there. They were winning games. He seemed annoyed with Mac Jones. So I don't know if he believed it. But I think the organization tried to talk themselves into it, and they may have believed it. I think the fans definitely had to talk themselves into him being the heir apparent. This guy, I think, is the true heir apparent in the sense that they think he's the guy that gets them back to the promised land. He's the guy that gets the organization back to being one of the first-class league organizations in the NFL. I don't think they ever really believed that Mac Jones was that guy. I think they thought we can compete with Mac Jones. We can make playoffs with Mac Jones, which they did in the first year. I don't think they really thought that they got an NFL superstar at quarterback again. I think they thought they got a guy who was serviceable. They don't think that with Drake Maye. They think Drake Maye is a future superstar. At least that's what they're hoping for. They drafted him at number 3. You cannot take a kid like that with all this pressure, with the circumstances all working against him, where you see a veteran quarterback struggling mightily to get anything out of these guys. You cannot throw him into this situation with this crap-ass team. You cannot do it. And I say that because I saw it with Zach Wilson. where you took a raw quarterback who needed more time to develop, and you threw him out there with no offensive line and no receivers, and they ate him alive. So with Sam Darnold, where you threw him out there with no receivers, no offensive line, and it ate him alive. And that's just the New York examples, but there are examples all over the NFL and NFL history of quarterbacks being thrown into situations too early or not being put in a situation where maybe even if they could play, they're playing on a team that's so bad that it's going to ruin their development. The greatest example, I think, is always David Carr, who kind of gets forgotten about because of his brother, who actually became a better player, Derek Carr. But David Carr was the #1 pick in the draft, first pick ever for the Houston Texans. And, you know, great arm, mobile, tough. A guy who, in a different circumstance, had potential. We just had no chance to ever see it because he got bludgeoned in his first year. They set the record for the most sacks. He had no receivers. His confidence was shaken and broken, and it was over. I think Tim Couch, a similar guy. Big arm, athletic. He goes to Cleveland, and he was a guy that I think struggled with confidence a lot. The last thing you want a guy who's not confident is throwing him in there with an expansion team with nobody to throw to. Same story. Destroyed, playing with nobody around him. He had no chance. I really fear that if they throw Drake Maye out there with this team, that to me is almost not fit to be an NFL team, to be honest. That's how bad they are. It could ruin the kid forever. And it will suck because we will never really know if Drake Maye could have got it done. I'm one of those people that does believe, I believe the great players, absolutely, they go to any situation, they find a way. A Patrick Mahomes, a Peyton Manning, those kind of guys. But I do think there are other like great players too. There's another class of great players where situation absolutely matters. Like who would have thought Drew Brees was ever going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback when you saw those first 2 years in San Diego? He looked terrible. But Marty Schottenheimer comes in, they change the system, they continue to add weapons, Antonio Gates becomes a revelation. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, wow, Drew Brees, this guy kind of like a bust his rookie year for sure. He looks pretty good. Then he goes to Sean Payton, and he becomes iconic. Like, I think there's tiers and there's factions of great players, and some can just go anywhere and succeed. Others need to be in the right position to succeed. I think Drake Maye, if he's going to be a great player, he's the second part. He's the latter. He's the guy that's going to need a great situation. And he has something that is nothing close to a great situation in New England, which is why it'd be a grave mistake if they started him week 1. 855-212-4227. Peter Schwartz is here with updates. Peter, what's happening?
Well, EJ, we'll begin in Toronto. Ernie Clement continue to swing a hot bat.
He is well traveled. 1-2 pitch is hit high, very deep, left field. Ward going back. Ernie Clement has left the yard. That pitch was up near his eyes, and he somehow hit it out. Third game for Clement in a row with a home run, and it's 4-0 Blue Jays.
That was the call on Blue Jays radio, and the Blue Jays beat the Angels 5-3. Now we go to Atlanta.
2-0 to the ball. Swung on, driven deep to left center field. That's got a chance to get out of here. It is gone! As called by Jonathan Chadwick. He said he was going to go deep, and Adam Duvall cleared the dirt. He cleared the warning track. He cleared the fence.
That was Joe Simpson on Braves radio. Braves beat the Phillies 3-2. They maintain a 1.5 lead over the Mets for the third National League wildcard spot. That's because the Mets beat the Padres 8-3. In the American League East, the Yankees beat the Guardians 6-0. The Orioles lost to the Astros 6-0, so the Yankees now have a 1.5 lead on the Orioles atop the American League East. Now to Chicago we go. It was a grand day for the Cubs.
Maye wearing bright red batting gloves on each hand. The pitch to Miguel. A swing and a drive. Deep left field. It's got a chance. Grand slam home run for Miguel Amaya.
That was Pat Hughes on Cubs radio. Cubs over the Tigers 10-2. Also from baseball yesterday, the Mariners fired manager Scott Servais. They named Dan Wilson as their new manager. The Dodgers designate Jason Hayward for assignment. NFL preseason last night, the Bears beat the Chiefs 34-21. Colts over the Bengals 27-14. Preseason action tonight. The Jaguars will visit the Falcons. Jaguars head coach Doug Peterson on what to expect.
This third and final preseason game, we usually let the starters play a little bit more. And again, it depends on the circumstance and the way the game goes, but you'd love to get maybe 2 quarters, out of them.
It's amazing how different philosophies the coaches have on these preseason games, especially the last one.
It's incredible. I think the fact that teams don't seem to be taking it quite as seriously, and then the fact that it's now 3 games has made it so random. Like, honestly, thank goodness the Bengals' second-team defense really showed up yesterday. They made that preseason game between them and the Colts actually kind of entertaining. Like, they made plays, they competed. They obviously had a pick 6. They stripped Anthony Richardson, so it was good to see. But you have some of these games where you got first-team offense versus second-team defense. Like, the Giants have this disastrous start to their preseason game against the Texans, but then the Texans pull their defense early. Giants offense still out there. Then they start to move the ball. They look okay. It's like, all right, well, they look better, but they're against the second-team defense. I think it almost seemed like back in the day there used to be almost like a gentleman's agreement of like, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to play the same amount of guys. We'll play the same amount of guys.
It was scripted.
Right. It was basically scripted on both sides, and they had almost, again, like a gentleman's agreement. Now it's just some teams, they'll play their whole star. The other team's playing nobody. I want to ask you this, because I asked this earlier. I said this earlier in the show. I think that preseason football should be abolished. I think that it's unnecessary because the teams, we have this unevenness when it comes to who plays who. And the joint practices have really become preseason. Like, they become almost events. Like, that's where the number ones are playing the number ones. It's highly competitive. We're seeing fights break out. Like, it's way different than watching even ones versus ones in preseason. To me, why not just make that your preseason football? And why don't you have, just like we do with spring practice or spring football, where we televise games on ESPNU or sometimes on ESPN, televise them like preseason games. I don't know why we can't just do that, because this is a terrible product.
The preseason games are awful, and I actually was contemplating going to the Jet-Giant game with my family tomorrow night, and thank God we never made the investment to get the tickets, because now the Jets aren't playing anybody tomorrow.
Exactly.
So, it's a problem. Look, the teams are still going to want to do it, because even if they go to 18 games in the regular season, they'll cut it down to 2 games in the preseason. They don't want to give up the gate. They charge season ticket holders. This is why I tell people who want to get season tickets, wait till after preseason to buy the season tickets.
Right.
Because it's not like they don't have them. They'll have them for you. Just buy them after the preseason games are over. You don't have to you're on the hook for the preseason games. It's just god-awful that they charge that amount. I've always thought maybe if you're going to have the preseason games, play them all at neutral sites. Like, you could take like the Jet-Giant game tomorrow night, for example. Play it at either Yankee Stadium or Citi Field, because the Giants used to play at Yankee Stadium, the old one, and the Jets played at Shea, which was next to where Citi Field is now. So be a little creative. You could have the Bengals and the Browns, if they played in the preseason, play the game in Canton. Like, find different places. At least make it somewhat interesting and appealing to watch the games. Otherwise, it's just garbage.
It is horrendous football. Like, I'm not someone who I need to see a bunch of stars play. I love sports. I love summer league basketball. I've been to the summer league. That's good basketball. Like, there are guys who are competing hard.
It's competitive.
You have not star players, but you have star rookies sometimes playing in these games. Like, it's decent. It's not NBA basketball, but it's fine. Like, preseason football, because teams aren't. Not only are these guys not starters, some of these guys will never play again in the NFL. Teams are also not showing anything. So these guys are also playing with their hands tied behind their back. Like, how are we going to see good games if the second and third string guys are playing with 25% of the playbook?
Right.
You're not going to see it. That's why the product is so bad. I think if they actually open it up, like, XFL football looks better than NFL.
Yeah, I don't want to hear anybody say that spring football is crap when you watch the preseason games, because at least with the spring games, they're legitimate teams. These guys are trying to keep their football dreams alive. And for some of them, there could be the opportunity to get to the NFL or get back to the NFL if they were already in it.
Right.
So, there's no comparison. Those games are much better than these preseason games. At some point, though, does the NFL also say, look, if we're charging money for these preseason games, you have to play the starters at least a quarter? Now, personally, as a Jet fan, I would have liked to have seen Aaron Rodgers get a series tomorrow night.
I've been on the fence about that, because I was someone kind of famous. It would have been famous if something bad would happen, but I was on shout out to Evan and Tiki. They might not have been Evan Tiki at that time, but I know Evan Roberts was hosting on the New York station, and I was producing, and I said that Aaron Rodgers would not get hurt in that preseason game. I'm like, he's not going to get hurt. Like, he knows how to protect his body. He'll be fine. And Evan Roberts, who's a huge Jets fan, was like, you just jinxed it. It's over. Why would you say that? And I had so many people in my mentions being like, if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, we're going to find you. And, of course, he did not get hurt. He played great in that 1 or 2 series he played with the Jets.
Yeah.
And, of course, he got hurt in week 1. So I was like, well, and nobody came back to me and said, "Oh, you're the reason he got hurt," because I said preseason. I didn't say anything about the regular season. I think it probably isn't the wisest to say I'm gonna start my comeback tour against Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, but I mean, I would still rather lose him in the regular season than preseason. So it probably isn't too much risk, but I understand not playing him.
Yeah, and I would have gone a step further and say if he got a series and they went 3 and out, I would have brought him back for a second one. I just want to see him get into some rhythm before the first game of the season. I understand why he's not, but just personally, I would have preferred that he played. But the whole preseason football thing is a big problem. They have to figure this out because it's garbage.
Yep. And I think Goodell knows this. Why he always insists that they want to keep lessening the games.
If you had an office here at the studios, you don't have an office, right?
There's a Maggie and Perloff office.
There's a Maggie and Perloff. But if you had your own office and you had valuables and collectibles and stuff like that, you'd want to make sure that it was protected, locked and everything like that.
For sure.
So St. John's basketball coach Rick Pitino has an office at Carnesecca Arena. It's on campus at St. John's. His office was broken into by a pair of thieves who ransacked his office for memorabilia. This is according to police. The 2 as yet identified men ran off with $375 worth of goods, including a basketball and a bullhorn, during the burglary that took place on Tuesday, where Pitino's office is located a floor above the basketball court. There's a video of these guys walking out with this stuff, so they should be able to find them. It was $375 worth of goods. The memorabilia included a signed basketball and a ceremonial dagger, which really upset Pitino more than the basketball was this dagger. Footage from the heist shared by the New York Post showed the 2 men walking through the arena's hallways. One man can be seen talking on a phone as he holds the small bullhorn. An item sources said was stolen from Pitino's office. Other items stolen: a sword, a mask, and bottles of alcohol.
And I saw Pitino make a joke about the alcohol. It was also something he was very sad to lose.
Yeah.
A sword?
It seemed
a sword.
Are we serious? And a dagger?
And a dagger.
How
He
cool.
went to what's that place in New Jersey? With you see the dinner.
Oh,
and the show.
Medieval Times.
Medieval Times, right? I should remember it. I went there on a school trip.
I mean, I'm sure that Rick Pitino's probably said several jokes about his players being like, "Oh, you guys don't want to practice hard. Let me go get my sword and dagger." I know for a fact that he's used that line plenty. I just feel like normally, I've actually been on St. John's campus. I've actually been at Carnesecca Arena. Typically, it's not that easy to access. I don't like especially during the summer. It's usually just closed. Like it's not open. Like I've been on there. I've snuck on the football field. High school was a fun time, but like I'm like stunned that like he was his office was that accessible to anybody to just walk in.
Right, it was walked in. It doesn't even say that they broke in. It looks to me and sounds to me like they just walked into his office and took the stuff.
It just annoys me when I hear. First of all, don't steal anything, people. It's bad and morally wrong. But like when I hear stories and you make this heist, and then I hear $300 worth of items, I'm like, come on, like.
Is it really worth it?
If you go, at a certain point, you got to just say, it ain't worth it. You go in, maybe you break in, you look around, nothing important, just leave. Like, what do you gain from getting $300 worth of goods? You're going to go to jail. You're going to spend time in prison, most likely, or at least time in jail for sure. Like, over $300 worth of stuff. Like, if you told me I robbed a bank, I'd be like, you shouldn't rob banks. But, okay, like, there's a lot of money in there. I know why people do it. Walk away.
Yeah.
Once you get to the office, you see just a weird sword and a dagger. Walk away. You're not going to need to fight Rick Pitino. He's 80 years old.
Right.
He ain't fighting you if you find him in the office. Just go home.
Go home. Well, hopefully they'll find these 2 guys. They have them on video. 2 clowns. Get them in trouble. So stupid. There you go.
Thank you so much, Peter Schwartz. Coming up, the M&P 500 with E doing it. I'll tell you what I have for stock up and stock down coming up after the break.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The M&P 500 on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right. M&P 500 without M&P. I saw someone, Delta Bryan, in the chat was like, it's the E&J 500. Okay, we'll go with that. Let's start with stock up. I'm going to get a stock up to the New York Livery. 8 in a row. I know people... I've heard some in the chat be like, talk some WNBA. All right, well, here's your WNBA talk. New York Liberty have been fantastic. They're doing this now without Sabrina Ionescu. They have a lot of pressure. They're like a pseudo super team. And they made the championship last year, came up a little bit short. I think you're starting to see them come together. They've been the cream of the WNBA for the entire season. So shout out to the New York Liberty. Give them a stock up. Also giving a stock up to the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the Jahan Dotson trade was a good gamble. They didn't have a number 3 receiver. It was the only thing they were missing. It's not the hugest thing in the world to not have a number 3 receiver, but I think you're seeing an offense now that's coming together that's looking a little scary. Because if he goes home, he feels more comfortable playing in front of the home crowd, so to speak, being a Lehigh Valley kid, and him playing in a much better offense. I think Jahan Dotson, if he's going to figure it out, he'll figure it out in Philly. I want to give a stock up to Coca-Cola. I mean, how much press have they gotten from college football coaches? It's so good, I almost wonder if it's a work. Because you have Lane Kiffin railing against Coca-Cola, talking about how much sugar there was in it. And then the next day, you had Brian Kelly talking about Coca-Cola, but talking about another product they do. He's talking about Smart Water. So we got Coca-Cola in the mix, the actual soda. We got Smart Water, a Coca-Cola product that's getting plugged. Coca-Cola has been talked about more on this show and other sports shows than it's been in years, maybe. I feel like we kind of moved past the need for preseason. I think we kind of, as American people, moved past the need for soda. Soda is not as popular anymore. But it feels like there was a good week for Coca-Cola, so I'm giving them a stock up. I want to give a stock up to backyard baseball. That's right. If you are a millennial like myself and you're a sports fan, you certainly probably grew up playing backyard baseball. It is a children's baseball computer game. Not to get too much into the weeds, but it's making a comeback. A lot of millennials are really excited. The great Pablo Sanchez, one of the greatest video game characters of all time, makes his return. I can't wait for this game. I'm so excited. We got EA college football back. Now we got backyard baseball. So I'm giving them a stock up. All right, we got to do stock down here. Week 0 college football. Do not need it. It's garbage. It's almost as bad as preseason. Not quite as bad because the games do matter. But if you're going to do a week 0, you have to give us some marquee games. And I'm sorry, Florida State and Georgia Tech does not cut it. That's not premier college football. One of the teams can't even get to their week 0 game in terms of Delaware State and Hawaii. Like, I want to get excited for college football, and to me, this is like the ultimate tease to be like, this football season actually starts. And unlike the lies the NFL tells when it says that football is back with preseason, this actually is football being back. But you got to give us some better games. Like, week 0 is corny. Get it out of here. Stock down. Also a stock down for USA flag football. We talked about the USA flag football quarterback, Hoosh, as he's nicknamed. He's been getting after the NFL players who have suggested that they're going to be playing in the Olympics, saying, hey, they have to earn their spot. Now, I watched this guy's highlights yesterday. There's highlights on anybody. You can find a highlight on Popeye Jones in the 90s in the NBA. Like, people make a highlight reel of anybody, and if someone actually made a highlight reel of Hoosh, I'll be honest, the kid's got some skills. I say kid, but that's one of the problems. I'll get to the kids in a minute. But, I mean, he could run, he's quick, he's agile, but I feel like he's looked so bitter and he's been so disrespectful to the NFL players that it's clouded any chance of us taking USA flag football seriously, because now he's saying he's better than Patrick Mahomes. So stock down. Bad stuff, man. Like, just be humble. Say, hey, like, it would be great. Say, hey, I want to play with Patrick Mahomes. I want to play with the NFL players. Say, I hope that we get an opportunity to run with the big guns and we bring back the gold for the U.S. Don't put it you versus them. Bold predictions of college football season next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Maggie and Perloff on the Infinity Sports Network.
Nine o'clock on the East Coast, 6 o'clock Pacific. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff here on the Infinity Sports Network. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. It's funny, I sit around here and sometimes I've not been here for almost 2 months, which is a wild time. For those who do not know, I tore my patellar tendon playing kickball, which is, I'll admit, when you say it out loud, as many times I've had to over the last 2 months, not great. You don't get great reactions. I've said it again, and I just watched Ryan's face behind the glass, and he's like, ugh. He knows that I did this already, by the way. This is not news to him. But me still saying it still makes him make weird faces back.
Because when you think about it, it's nasty. It's very nasty.
It's a great way to describe it.
Because didn't your kneecap go out of place?
Oh, yeah. It was dislocated.
Oh,
I always leave that part out because, like, when I talk to the doctors and when I talk to anybody medical, like, they kind of like, yeah, your kneecap is dislocated, but, like, whatever. Like, it's almost like that's the expectation when you rupture your patella tendon. But, yeah, like, my kneecap was also dislocated. Sorry for those eating breakfast at home or feel grossed out by it. Ryan just had the shivers.
Good morning to you.
Behind the glass. Like, so, yeah, it's a gruesome injury. It's not fun. If I had any advice for people, don't rupture your patella tendon ever. Definitely don't do it playing kickball because when you tell the story, people are like, wow, that sounds ridiculous. I'm like, it was ridiculous. But either way, I'm so happy to be back in the studio. Coming back to some of this stuff I'm watching as I look around the studio, look around the office, it almost feels like a time capsule. Like I'm looking to my right and I see the whiteboard that we have back here, which we use for various reasons. And there was, when I was injured, I had surgery and I was out for a little bit where I just wasn't doing anything on the show for a short amount of time. I didn't watch the show every day or watch the whole show every day. I usually watch some of it, but I didn't get to watch the whole show every day. So there's some stuff I don't know that happened or I missed. And I'm looking at this whiteboard, and I know this didn't happen while I was here because I would have remembered this. I just see a whiteboard that says Pete's mad.
Good times.
And it has a list of things that annoyed him.
That was one day.
And I'm looking at this list. Some things I remember, some things I don't. Like why people out of the board operator here on the show, why was he mad at Gunnar Henderson?
Because he opted into the home run derby. Because he's on his fantasy team, and he was mad that he's going to ruin his swing and ruin his chances to win the fantasy championship.
That's selfish of Pete. The fans want to see Gunnar Henderson. This list includes Gunnar Henderson, suspended coach from Uruguay. That part I think I did remember. I think he was upset.
He said cheat better.
Yeah, the way he cheated wasn't good. Which I was like, okay. Zach Wilson engagement. I had no idea why that would anger Pete. I don't even like Zach Wilson, but I mean, I'm happy for him. But like Tyrod Taylor as a landlord, I know he had the issue with his ex and wanting to move out his ex. I don't know. Again, why would that make him mad? I don't understand. The Mariners feel like that's the one that I saw it. I was like, well, maybe this was recent but the Mariners have now sucked.
Wait, what does it say about the Mariners?
It doesn't say anything. It just says Mariners. I'm just like, okay.
That might be new.
I don't remember. Are they adding to the list? I don't know. But like the Mariners are there. I see. I don't know if I should read this one, but I'm going to read it anyway.
The girl, Haley Walsh.
No, I just see Samter.
Oh, Samter. That was a Zach one.
Oh, Zach added to the list. Okay, because I'm like,
did we
maybe
lose
there's
the merchandise
maybe
from
there's some beef there.
The
I don't
Hawk
know.
Tua girl.
Oh, is that
the Tua girl?
Yeah, Hot Tua.
It's still there?
No. No Hot Tua girl. They erased that, I guess.
Selling merch.
Okay. That was erased on the list, or maybe he got over that. And then there's Jets logo.
Yeah, I think it was the oval.
Yeah, the oval. That logo was not great. But he's mad about it.
There's something dumb.
My gosh, Pete's anger on the show has gotten to a point where we now have to list the things he's mad about. I assume these are faux pas that I can't talk to him about. Like I have to avoid these things. I assume like the plague. It's kind of hard because we're both Jet fans, so we talk about the Jets all the time. And there's like 3 Jet things on this list. But then there's like things that you could just randomly like step on a grenade. Like I could just say, hey, you saw that Gunnar Henderson play last night? And he may just like curse me out because apparently Pete's mad about him. Or I could just be like, how about the Mariners? And that could start a fight apparently because there's a list here about things that make Pete mad. And they're, besides a Jets connection, they seem extremely random. Also, the Jets connection has nothing to do with football. They're all things. It's a logo. It's Tyrod Taylor as a landlord, and it's an ex-quarterback's engagement. That guy is, he's an original. He's a one-on-one. Shout out to the great Pete the Body Bellotti. I hate week 0, but I love talking college football, which is why I'm so excited to do this. We have EJ's 5 bold predictions for the college football season. I thought so long and hard about these yesterday because I was like, I want to give the people something that they could really sink their teeth into. I don't want to come here and be like, well, Georgia's going to be really good. And, hey, that Quinn Ewers kid, he could really throw the football. I don't want to give you that. I'm not doing that. I love college football too much. I've spent way too much time invested in college football for the last month because of the release of EA College Football 2025. So it's like if I don't know anything about, if I can't give you 5 real solid bowl predictions, I've wasted my time for the last 2 months. Because outside of preparing for this show from home and PT, all I've done is play EH college football. And recently Love is Blind UK. Those are the only things I've done for the last 2 months because I can't go nowhere. So I want to make sure I give you guys something here. So let's go through this. So let's start with number 1. No team finishes the season undefeated. No one finishes undefeated. And that may sound like, oh, what's the big deal with that? Well, look, I mean, we've had now several years in a row where somebody goes undefeated, and everyone's in love with Ohio State. Everyone's in love with Georgia. They are absolutely loaded. But both teams, tough conferences that just got tougher. Ohio State, are they really going to survive road trips to Oregon and Penn State in one season? Potentially then also a Big Ten championship game? How about Georgia? Georgia has 5 top 15 matchups in this season. That include road trips to Alabama, road trip to Texas, road trip to Ole Miss, who I'll talk about in a second. And then an SEC championship game, which will presumably be against the top 15 team. And I say undefeated. I'm not even including playoffs. I'm saying during the regular season, no undefeated teams. You look at the ACC, there are 3 intriguing teams: Florida State, Clemson, Miami. I mean, Clemson's got Georgia week 1, so that seems unlikely that they go undefeated. Florida State and Miami, are they really not going to slip on a banana peel at some point during the season? That seems unlikely as well. Big 12, talented teams, but too deep. Too many teams that are close to each other. Talent disparity is not that big. So I'm not looking at a Big 12 and undefeated champion. So I think we have no undefeated teams going into college football play, which I think will be awesome. I think it will make the seeding and the ranking extremely controversial. People have been concerned about whether or not there's going to be controversy regarding the college football playoff now that there's so many teams. I think the fact that you'll have so much parity and so much losses, I think that Georgia and Ohio State both lose at least one game. I think that'll create for some good conversation. Number 2. Colorado fails to make bowl eligibility. Look, the Buffs have 2 big-name stars on the field in Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. They have a football icon on the sidelines in Deion Sanders. I just feel like Colorado hasn't really learned from the mistakes from last season's tailspin. Because you got Coach Prime, who seems almost more invested in facing head-on these petty squabbles with the media or internet trolls, instead of trying to limit distractions, which is usually the good job of a head coach. You also have a team that now is ushering in the season 43 transfers. And I know this was a bad team last year, so I'm not saying they didn't need the portal. They absolutely did. But what we saw last season was people questioning whether or not a team could really just overhaul a roster in 1 year and become a winner because of so much of the turnover. And instead of trying to keep any continuity, Deion he basically did part 2 of going there and getting that portal. This was the sequel to that. He told the team that he got into the portal last year, that he got from the portal, to go back in. Of all these guys that he brought like 50 guys in last year. Now he's bringing another new 43 this year. I don't know how you build continuity, how you build a real team, how you build a program if you got new guys every single year. So I think the number of portal transfers, I think, is a little high. There's also massive changes on the coaching staff. New offensive coordinator, Pat Shermer, who's full-time now taking responsibility. He was kind of a weird analyst, then play caller. It was all weird. New defensive coordinator, new O-line coach. We're talking about 3 or 4 or 5 big-time assistants that changed. So the staff now looks completely different. Warren Sapp is around there. Shout out to Warren Sapp, great Miami Hurricane. But he's never coached before. He's talking about how they're going to be a great run defense because he's there. I mean, I don't know how you build continuity with all these changes. And then you got the aforementioned Big 12. There are no weeks off. Now, they were in the Pac-12 last year, and you play against Oregon or Washington, that's an L because they're just so much better than Colorado. They're probably more competitive games, but I just feel like every week you don't have the layups. You don't have an Oregon State who's matching pretty good. You don't have a Washington State. You don't have some of these teams that Colorado had a better chance against. Every game's going to be tough. So I just think it's going to be a tough year for Colorado. I have them at 5 wins, which means they would not make bowl eligibility. Let's go to number 3.
Number 3.
This is the spiciest one, I think. It's the one that I think people will be like, okay, this is where you're going too far. I have Jackson Dart winning the Heisman. Now, betting on anyone associated with Lane Kiffin to win anything significant, usually a fool's errand. It wouldn't be the first time I've been called a fool. So I'm going to take that plunge. Look, if this isn't the year for Ole Miss to really make something happen and make history, it's never going to happen. Dart is experienced. He's fearless. He's battle-tested, and battle-tested in a way where essentially it was him getting his brains beaten in by Alabama and Georgia for 2 or 3 years and some lopsided losses. But I feel like those experiences have actually helped Jackson Dart, and I feel like everything's in line for Dart and the Rebels to get their lick back this year. He has a solid stable of backs, but none are big enough names to really steal the spotlight from him as a star. Their receiving core is awesome. And especially now, they got this kid, Deion Smith, who was the #1 JUCO player, who everybody wanted, former LSU guy. This kid was at LSU, and the Tigers people were so excited. They thought that he would be better than Malik Neighbors, who's currently right now just lighting it up in training camp for the New York Giants. So an already loaded receiving core just got better as Deion Smith became eligible. I think Ole Miss is in good shape, and I think Jackson Dart can put up some good numbers. The schedule, it's an SEC schedule, but it's not that tough, or at least it's not impossible. Yes, you got Georgia, but it's at home late in the season, so I think maybe Georgia has injuries, maybe they're a little fatigued. That's a better thing for them. They only have one ranked road game. That's number 13, LSU. I think they're in good shape, and I think Jackson Dart, I think, becomes one of the big stories of the college football season. So after 89 years, I think Ole Miss gets their first Heisman. Let's go to number 4.
Number 4.
I take that back. I think this is going to be the one that I think most people are going to be like, you're going to get mad at. Just because of the volume of their fans. They can sometimes be annoying. They definitely like to get after you. But as I said, I duck no smoke. So call in 855-212-4227 if you want the verbal fade. Notre Dame misses the playoffs. Everyone is penciling the Irish to make it into this newly expanded college football playoff. In many ways, it feels built for them. Not in the sense that they can get a top 4 seed. That is kind of a screwed up thing. I think they got to fix that somehow. But the fact that it's 12 teams, Notre Dame scheduling, they can kind of cook their way into the thing every year because they can just not play against the best teams and put up a good record. Look, if they have a big name QB transfer, they have an awesome defense. But I think Riley Leonard, is he a great talent or a great player? Similar to the question I had about Anthony Richardson, I have the same question about Riley Leonard. Great talent or great player? Talent, kid can run, kid has a great arm, he's athletic, he's strong, but his accuracy was bad last year when he played. Now, I know he's battling injuries and he had ankle surgery, second one he's had on the same ankle. Maybe that will help him, I don't know, but he's not, to me, and I will again watch him in the ACC at Duke, never really overly impressed me as a thrower. He's very strong, and he's got a good arm, and he can run like hell, but I'm not convinced he's a great thrower. This is a team that lost 2 NFL tackles in Joe Alt and Blake Fisher. I'm not quite sure the Irish are going to be as good on offense as people think. I think their defense will be great. Freeman's a great defensive coach. But in his first 2 years at Notre Dame, they always lose these early season games against teams they shouldn't. And I think it's going to probably happen again. We look at the schedule and say, Irish easily make the playoffs. I think Riley Leonard, maybe health, maybe a little sense that maybe he's a little overrated. I think he's one of the main reasons why they don't meet expectations. They actually miss the college football playoff. All right, let's hit the last one, number 5.
Number 5.
Oregon wins his first national championship. I'm a big believer in Dan Lanning. I just, sometimes you see a coach and you're like, that guy has it. Sometimes you can't like put your finger on it. And like, we know Dan Lanning's a great defensive coach, X and O's wise. He's been, basically tutored by, Kirby Smart. That's his mentor. Kirby Smart's giving him all the cosigns in the world. But what Dan Lanning's done in 2 seasons at Oregon, I'm extremely impressed by, because I saw what his predecessor did after leaving Oregon and Mario Cristobal, and how Miami still trying to figure their way out. They may have a good year this year, but he's come to Oregon. He's taken them to the next level. Like, they weren't competing for national championships on the Mario Cristobal. They were a good team in the Mario Cristobal. He went to Oregon in 2 years, turned them into a legit national championship contender. And this team and this roster can be special. I mean, you got Dylan Gabriel, quarterback. Evan Stewart, elite wide receiver coming over from Texas A&M. Tez Johnson coming back at Oregon. You're talking about that trio in terms of offensive firepower. They're going to put up a ton of points. Lanning is, as I said, one of the best defensive coaches in college football. I think in year 3 with more of his players, you see that defense continue to improve. And they also got a big transfer at cornerback in Jabbar Muhammad from Washington, who left after all the fallout between with Kalen DeBoer leaving. I think Oregon does it. I think Dan Lanning is going to become one of the real kind of superstars and faces of college football. It feels like we're missing that. Like with Saban gone, Meyer gone, a lot of that old guard is gone. And I look at college football right now, I say, who's the real face of college football? I know Kirby Smart won a lot of titles, and he could very well win this year. But he's just not that interesting. He's not going to give you a great quote. He seems all about business. I don't know if like that guy can become the face of college football unless he just wins every single year, which maybe he will. But I don't know. I think this Georgia thing has to come down at some point. I feel like Lanning has a personality. I think he's got the team. I think he's got the uniform, the look. I think Oregon is on one right now. I think they're one of the hottest programs in college football. The NIL money just flowing in thanks to Phil Knight. I think it all culminates this year in Oregon winning its first national championship. So those are my 5 bold predictions for the college football season. I'll read them off real quickly. Number one, no team finishes undefeated. Number 2, Colorado fails to make a bowl. Number 3, Jackson Dart wins the Heisman. Number 4, Notre Dame misses the playoff. Number 5, Oregon wins its first national championship. Ryan, I do not know if you're big into college football, but if you are, do you feel like any of these predictions are a little out there?
I agree with you on Dion.
Okay.
Oregon is a little far out there for me.
Really?
I just think the chemistry has to take time.
And in some ways, like what I said about Dion is why you could say Oregon won't work out.
Yes.
I just think because they have a lot of transfers. Now, it's not 43, but they have big transfers in big spots.
Well, talent will shine through. It's just...
Here's what I like about Oregon, though. I think, A, they have better transfers. Like, Dylan Gabriel may be one of the top 3 or 4 quarterbacks in college football. Evan Stewart may be one of the top 4 or 5 receivers in college football. Like, they got superstars coming to their team. So I think that's the one thing. I think their transfers are better. And 2, I feel like they play an extremely player-friendly offense. Like, I think if you're going to go to a team where you're going to, transfer and everything changes, you got to learn new terminology, get chemistry. It feels like the Oregon offense, it's explosive, but I don't think it's that complicated. I think it's pretty simple. It's a lot of short stuff, a lot of quick reads, and it's a lot of letting the athletes kind of just be themselves and make plays with the ball once they get the ball in their hands. It's not about complex routes and complex schemes. That's not how you run this system. And I think that's a benefit for these guys because Dylan Gabriel, when he was running a similar system at UCF, was borderline national championship kind of quarterback. So I think that system is going to help him. The Big Ten is the wild card in this for me when I was thinking about a national championship pick because is there any kind of blowback from saying, all right, now all your road games are traveling 3 or 4 hours on a plane every week? I actually got to look at the schedule. I'm not sure how many back-to-back weeks they have where they're going on the road, but certainly they're going to have a decent amount of road games. They certainly have a big one. Well, actually, they have Ohio State at home this year, but they're going to have some weird stuff with that maybe. I just look at their offense and I look at an improving defense and I say, I just don't know how many teams have the trio of offensive firepower of those guys. And they got great running backs too. They're just complete. And I think the defense was probably the one question mark, but we've seen it get better every year. And I think Jabbar Muhammad was a huge transfer. We keep talking about Dylan Gabriel and talking about Evan Stewart. I think Jabbar may be not the most important, but I think he's like the X factor. I think if you add a corner like that who can really shut down a half of the field potentially, now that makes everyone's job better because they're a defense that's stout, but they don't really get a lot of pressure. They don't get a lot of sacks from their front 4. So you're going to have to cover. You're going to be able to cover now when you got a guy who could be an NFL player playing on one side of the field. So Oregon was the one, but you're okay with Dart and you're okay with Notre Dame. I'm surprised because
Notre Dame I can see happening. Dart I can see happening. I just don't see Oregon winning it.
Wow. Interesting. I want to know what you guys think. Those are my 5 bold predictions. Give us a call, 855-212-4227. Who do you have for the national championship? Who do you have for the Heisman? Am I wrong about Notre Dame? I love college football, man, and I think it is a shame that like we have to do. Like I love talking about this stuff. I love doing this. It's a shame that we have to do it, I think, a week earlier than we should because of week 0. Like we were getting ready for the show on Thursday, and like I think it was either Maggie or Perloff. Obviously, there's only 1 of 3 options in these pre-production calls, and they're like, we should probably do our Heisman and National Championship picks, right? I was like, oh yeah, I guess so, because there's games that matter, even though they're games that probably will be unwatchable. They probably won't be all that fun. I mean, I don't know. I think that week 0 is just not it's a thing because they've made it a thing, but it's just I would be so happy if they got rid of it. But it doesn't mean that we can't still get excited for college football because I think this will be a historic season. And I have a lot of history. Our first Heisman for Ole Miss, our first national championship for Oregon. I think you're going to see a lot of really awesome stuff. I think the college football playoff is going to be amazing. I think adding the element of March Madness to college football is going to be great. You're going to have a group of 5 team in there. Who knows if they're able to make some noise? There's going to be somebody that's going to get upset. I know I keep seeing all these predictions and I see all these previews, and a lot of it has been a little chalk in terms of like picking the same Final Four because it does feel in some ways like it's Ohio State and Georgia. In some ways, it feels like Ohio State and Georgia and the rest, but in a more macro way, it seems like it's Ohio State, Georgia, Oregon, and Texas and the rest. I don't think it will play out that way when we get to the playoffs. I think the length of the season will include more injuries, will include more variables that we're not going to expect by the time we get to game 14 and 15 of the college football season for some of these teams. Just like we see a team like the Philadelphia Eagles last year in the NFL start 10-0. And like if that was a college football season, they'd be packing it up and getting ready for the national championship game or a 1-game college football playoff in a national championship. But we see the war of attrition that happens with a football season can lead to them teams kind of falling apart at the end. And I think there's a chance you actually may see that happen in college football in playoff games or in conference championship games, which I think will be really exciting. Number to call in 855-212-4227. Coming up, there's some teasing that's happening about a super team up. But would it work? I want to explore that in a little bit. It's EJ Stewart filling in for Maggie and Perloff. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
I've spared you guys the pain of my singing, but shout out to Ryan Botcher, who's been great with the music. Anytime I host a show, it should be maybe the least important thing to people, but it's the most important thing to me because I think it sets the vibe of the show. It puts me in a certain position. Is the music that gets played, making sure that it jives with the energy I'm bringing. Usually when that happens, I usually end up going into song that usually probably annoys the listener and annoys the person behind the glass. But I got a lot of things going on. I got a ruptured patellar tendon that's healing. Have my legs up on like this cardboard box to rest my leg on. I got some plastic here that's keeping my leg in place. There's a lot going on. I'm not going to add to that by trying to sing while doing live radio. So just be lucky, I guess, that I'm in this situation. It's EJ Stewart, executive producer of Maggie and Perloff, filling in for Maggie and Perloff here. We have about a half hour left on the show. Number to call in, 855-212-4227. I floated this out there for the break because I've been seeing stuff, and this is one of those things where, as a sports fan, you say, be careful what you wish for because it might happen. And I think I did it to myself. Because I've said it a bunch on the show, and you guys may or may not know, but I'm a huge Steph Curry fan. He's one of my all-time favorite athletes. It's funny, I love basketball. It's my all-time favorite sport. I played basketball growing up. And my dad, his all-time favorite athlete is Magic Johnson. It's his sports idol. And, the relationship he has to Magic and what Magic means to him is just different than any other sports figure that's played in sports. And I always thought, man, I don't think I ever had that relationship with an athlete in terms of just what they mean to me and, what they mean as just, what they stand for, their great play, and just, how you relate to them. And then Steph Curry came around. And Steph Curry is that guy to me. What Magic is to my dad and a lot of fans of his age is who Steph Curry is to me. And I'm not a Golden State Warrior fan. So I'm not married to the idea that Steph Curry has to end his career with the Warriors. It would be cool. It would be really cool. But I watched Steph Curry do what he did in the Olympics, and I think he's wasting his time in Golden State. They can't find a way to add more stars to that team. They're clearly one of the 7th or 8th best teams in the West. Like, it would be best if Steph Curry requested a trade and got himself out of there and got himself to a winner. But then I look on social media, and I see Stephen Curry change his profile picture from, I don't even know what it was before, but I think it was a picture of him with the Warriors. If it wasn't, it may have just been a generic picture. But anyway, he changed his picture to a picture of him and LeBron James. And then he said, okay, it's a picture. They won a championship, gold medal, and it was very important, for them to team up for the Olympic team. Steph Curry never played, and then they won a gold medal. So, like, maybe he's just celebrating that. I said, okay, I'll move on from that. Then he changes his Instagram bio from Golden State Warriors guard to Olympic gold medalist. Takes out all Warriors reference. Like, he has all these other things, too. He has, like, father of 3 daughters and a son. He has all this other crap not crap, I shouldn't say it lately. He has all this other stuff that he cares about in his bio. One of them was guard for the Warriors. Removes that completely. Adds Olympic gold medalist. He could have removed some of the other stuff. There's some business stuff in there. There's stuff he could have removed. But he made sure to remove the Warrior part to this and added Olympic gold medalist. And, it's been floated around that, a lot of Laker fans, a lot of Laker players even, some of the stuff we've seen on social media with, Jared Vanderbilt and the stuff he's commenting on, comments on social media, like perhaps a LeBron-Steph tandem in the Lakers is what we need. Because we got the report earlier this week that Rich Paul had nixed any possible trade of LeBron going to the Warriors during the midseason trade deadline, which apparently there were some conversations about because Rich Paul wanted to protect LeBron's legacy. Because he thought that it would be a bad look for LeBron to go to a 4th team and try to win a championship with some other guy on a team that's not his. We can get into the politics of that. I don't know if it would have been that big a deal. But now, as a Steph Curry fan who has been hell-bent on talking about how great Steph Curry is, he's my basketball idol as a player. Now you're talking about him teaming up with the enemy in L.A. It'd be good for his career. I think Steph and LeBron with the Lakers can work. I don't know championship work, but to me, we say, will they win a championship? It's I don't know. It's championships are luck. It's a lot that goes into it. My thing is you got to get yourself in the conversation. You got to get yourself in the picture to have a shot. Right now, the Warriors don't got a shot. The Lakers don't have a shot. But if Steph Curry could find his way to get to L.A., and if he maneuvers himself and starts throwing his weight around and say, hey, I think it's time to part ways and I want to go to the Lakers, it'd be a tough pill to swallow for Joe Lacob. I don't know if Joe Lacob has the standing to say, I'm not going to sing to the Lakers. I don't think he can do that to Steph Curry. I've seen other people do that. We saw the Pacers do that with Paul George. We've seen the Nets do that with Kyrie Irving, where they're saying, I'm not sending you to the Lakers. And they could do that because those players weren't as beloved by their fans. They're not icons by their fans. So, there is no other side of your disrespecting your own legend. With Steph Curry, that would 100% be a conversation. So I sit here and say, man, as a Steph Curry fan who's had to watch him have these wars with LeBron, and you argue with LeBron fans left and right about who's the best player in the NBA at any given time, who deserved this MVP, who deserved that MVP. I kept saying for months that Steph Curry needed to get out of Golden State, that he needed to demand a trade. He needed to find a contender. Never really thought it'd be the Lakers. And nobody wants to see the Lakers get Steph Curry like that. And I know he's older. I know we say he's not the exact same player, but I don't know. I saw him in the Olympics playing those last 2 games. I saw how the Olympics rejuvenated him and LeBron. When I watched those games, it told me if those guys get to contenders or get to play together somewhere, they can compete one more time for a title. I do not want to see with the Lakers. I think a lot of NBA fans will be very upset if it's the Lakers that Steph Curry goes to. So this was a thing of be careful what you wish for. I'm seeing some tea leaves about Curry, LeBron in LA, and I'm like, I should have just kept my mouth shut. You cannot speak things into existence that you don't want. I did want to see Steph Curry lead the Warriors. I do not want to see him on the Lakers selfishly. And I know a lot of Warrior fans and a lot of Steph Curry fans agree with me. 855-212-4227. Let's get to some updates. Let's talk to Peter Schwartz. What's happening?
All right, Jay, we'll start with baseball, and our first stop, San Diego.
Gillespie rocks and fires. And a bouncing ball to the right side. Bogarts can't get to it. That's through as well. Lindor scores to make it 6-1. RBI single for Alonso. Bogarts went to his left and could never get there. And Alonso adds another run.
Key threat on Mets radio during a 5-run ninth inning that put the game away, and the Mets beat the Padres 8-3. The Braves beat the Phillies 3-2. So the Braves lead the Mets by a game and a half for the third National League wildcard spot. That's going to be a race that I think is going to go right down to the wire.
I think it will. The Mets are on a good start here. I think the Braves stabilizing as well. This is great for baseball. Like the fact that it's these two teams probably for those last two spots, those fan bases will be engaged. Certainly the Mets fans will be engaged because they can't stand the Braves. There will be some big-time games in September, so that will be fun.
And now to Baltimore. Astros and Orioles opening up a series at Camden Yards.
2-2. And that is lined in the center field. A base hit for Shea Whitcomb. That'll score 2 as Gambles and Myers come home. A 2-run single for Shea Whitcomb. And the Astros lead is now 6-0. Whitcomb with his first big league RBIs.
Robert Ford on Astros radio. Astros beat the Orioles 6-0, and they open up a 5.5 game lead over the Mariners in the AL West. And with that Orioles loss, the Yankees now a game and a half up on Baltimore in the AL East. The Yankees beat the Guardians 6-0. Aaron Judge with his 48th home run of the season. Now to Washington.
And the pitch, swing, and a long drive to left center field. This one way back's got a chance. Going, gone, goodbye. Into the Brewhouse, red seats up into the right of the Rockies bullpen in left center field. Bang! Zoom goes Juan Yepes with his 4th home run in the big leagues this year.
That was Charlie Slows on Nationals radio. Nationals beat the Rockies 8-3. Elsewhere in baseball yesterday, you had the A's over the Rays 3-1. The Pirates beat the Reds 7-0. Paul Skeens now 8-2, 6 innings, 2 hits, 9 strikeouts. The Blue Jays beat the Angels 5-3. The Cubs beat the Tigers 10-2. Miguel Amaya with a grand slam. Cardinals over the Brewers 3-0. That's the 7th shutout win for the Cardinals this season. The Mariners fired manager Scott Servais and named Dan Wilson as their new manager. Amazing the turnaround in the wrong direction for the Mariners from where they were 10 games up in the AL West on June 18th, 20-23 since then, and now they make a managerial change.
Sage the whole organization. Sage the facilities, sage the stadium, sage the spring training
You're all
facilities.
in on this,
This is a long time for absolute futility. And I don't know why we don't talk about the Mariners. I guess, and it's funny because
curse was the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I said they were cursed, and I think they are because no World Series. Okay, some teams don't win championships, but then no one playoff appearance in 20-something years. The one playoff appearance you went, you didn't get past first round. They're not a nothing franchise because those fans really love the Mariners and they care. Mm-hmm. But it's almost like if you could just have not paid attention to Mariners baseball for 30 years. And, okay, you miss King Felix. Maybe you miss a Julio Rodriguez home run derby. Otherwise, you don't miss anything.
Yeah.
There's nothing about anything that's happened with Seattle that is noteworthy in the history of baseball for the last 30 years. That's incredible to me.
And the year that they won 116 games, they lost to the Yankees in the playoffs.
Couldn't even get to the World Series.
They didn't even get to the World Series
that
that
doesn't
year.
tell you cursed. I don't know what does.
Preseason football yesterday, the Bears beat the Chiefs 34-21. The Colts over the Bengals 27-14. EJ talked about this earlier today. The Commanders trading wide receiver Jahan Dotson and a 2025 fifth-round pick to the Eagles for a third-round pick and 2 seventh-round selections. Now, as we all know, we're in a different world and a different landscape when it comes to college sports with the transfer portal. So you sign somewhere in the past, you're locked in there. If you wanted to leave, you had to sit out a year. Unless the coach left, then maybe you had a hardship thing for that. So now players are moving all over the place, no question about it. This comes to us from On3 Sports, an interview that took place with Miami, Ohio head coach Chuck Martin, and the reporter asked him about losing former kicker Graham Nicholson, who transferred to Alabama.
All right, special teams, lost your kicker. Carter McLaughlin.
He's at. We didn't lose him. He's at Alabama. We know.
Yeah,
exactly,
I understand.
We know exactly
that.
where he's at. Like you media people, it's all pretend. Like no, Alabama stole our kicker.
Yes,
they illegally recruited our. They illegally recruited our kicker and stole him from us, and like that's a fact. But that's but we act like it's not. We live in this la world. Like hey, let's not talk. I don't know why everybody knows what's going on. So yeah, Alabama stole our kicker. A couple other schools tried to steal him.
So they stole their kicker.
Take a breath.
Okay, number one. Why is he getting on the media guy about not telling the truth about what? Like, I'll be honest, like he could have been the best research reporter of all time, who had great sources, who's been following Miami, Ohio football like it's the White House. Nobody knew anything about the kicker being quote unquote stolen from Miami, Ohio to Alabama. But yes, maybe known that the guy left. Maybe you even know he went to Alabama. How would he know he got stolen? How would he know that?
Right.
The
basic premise of the question was that you lost your kicker. Okay, whether he was stolen or not, they lost their kicker, so now they have to find a kicker somewhere else.
And that's fine, but like it's not a lie. You did lose your kicker. Now you say, okay, it was stolen. All right. I don't know what you want the reporter to do there. That's not his fault that you feel this way, or it's not his fault that he's saying like he's acting like the reporter is like leaving out some important information that he knows when that reporter clearly had no idea that anyone at Miami, Ohio thinks their kicker was stolen. Also, I will say this. To get this upset about your kicker being stolen says a lot about your program. I'm sorry, Coach. Like, if you told me Alabama stole our wide receiver, I'd say, you know what? Yeah, I'd be upset about that too. But the fact that you're going crazy over the fact that your kicker was stolen tells me there ain't a lot out there in terms of talent that you have to worry about at Miami, Ohio.
Also making an accusation that Alabama did something illegal. So now is this going to lead to the NCAA looking at this? Like, what was the illegal activity that caused them to feel
that too? My thing is, like, if you're going to throw allegations out there, like, say what they did. Because Kalen DeBoer asked about it yesterday. I saw it, and he was like, kid entered the portal. We reached out to him. He signed. I have nothing more to say about it. I don't know what else to say. Like, you have to say, what did he do? Do you have text messages? Do you have phone calls? Like, I hate when people are like, oh, this thing happened, and then like they don't even elaborate on what happened. I don't know. You're doing this over a kicker. We talked about Aiden Childs saying take the over when it comes to this game, their first game of the season with Michigan State. I'm taking the under with everything Miami, Ohio, if he's this upset about losing a kicker.
Not like a 5-star, like you said, not like a 5-star wide receiver or quarterback or defensive lineman or something like that.
Right. And honestly, good for the kicker. Like, Miami, Ohio, like, it's a fine school. He's going to play at the University of Alabama. It's a dream for people, or Alabama University, whichever it is. It's a dream for people. Like, that's a great accomplishment. Like, there's life beyond Miami, Ohio football. You should maybe be happy for the kid. This was so corny.
And by the way, just with all this recruiting talk, I mean, my family and I are learning a whole lot about the recruiting. In the last few weeks, we've learned a whole lot of stuff about college recruiting. So I'll just leave it at that.
There you go. Thanks so much, Pete. It's great to see you this
Have a great weekend. It is fantastic to see you. Be well, get healthier, and we look forward to seeing you around here more often.
Thank you, man. Really appreciate that. Coming up, where the hell has this guy been? Where has he been? Apparently, he's showing up this weekend. I want to talk about him. We'll be right back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
I told you, don't get me started. Let me stop before I anger people. They start turning off their radios, turning off their laptops, smartphones, whatever they are, if I sing too much. I love that song, though. Kid Cudi, man. What a legend. 855-212-4227 is the number to call. Had a fun show today, as I said before. I'm always ducking no smoke. So you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me via the telephone or Twitter, EJ_Stewart. At Pop Sauce tweets, Niners need to blank or get off the pot with Brandon Aiyuk and Trent Williams. Let's go. And I talked about earlier the fact that the Niners have not signed Aiyuk or Trent Williams. And now we get the new reporting from Michael Silver that apparently the Commanders may now be in play for Brandon Aiyuk. I told you before, I don't know if this is necessarily a Niners thing. I'm not sure if this is something they can control. I think this is just a cycle of what happens with a team that has been around the rim, to use Jerry Jones's term, around the rim for so long and not winning. Now you're seeing the downsides of that. Like, usually this happens when you win championships, but they've been close and not winning. And now guys are getting older, saying, I don't want anything to do with training camp. If you're Trent Williams, probably. Guys are asking for handouts because now they've outperformed their contracts, like a Brandon Aiyuk. Some guys just ask for money, I think, literally just to pay for weddings, if you're Christian McCaffrey. I'm standing on business on that. I really think that's why he got that pay raise. Like, I think that this is a situation where you can't control this. This is why I don't feel good about the Niners repeating getting back to the Super Bowl. Because I just think that they were a team that at the time, they were so bought in. Everybody was all engaged. They bought into Shanahan's system. I think they bought into Kyle Shanahan himself. And that made things easier for them. I think now you got guys looking for money, guys looking for ways out of training camp. I just think that kumbaya Niners spirit we've seen for the last 3 years is gone. Because we forget, the Niners, they're this very talented team now, but there was a time when they were kind of like the little engine that could. Like when they were beating the Rams on the road in the playoffs, or playing against the Rams on the road in the playoffs. They lost, of course, in the NFC Championship game, or when they upset the Cowboys on the road in the playoffs. Like there was a time, or upset the Packers. The Niners were not this like juggernaut team. Their roots are actually more of a, underdog team. They become the juggernaut because of the talent they've amassed and the talent that they developed. But I think what comes with that maybe comes a little relaxation, comes a little contentment. And I'm looking at the Lions, the Packers, the Eagles, the Cowboys. I'm looking at teams that are hungry, that haven't gotten to that position. Or if the Eagles, you only got there once and lost. And I don't see, the Cowboys have a bunch of issues with holdouts. That's another story. But the other teams, I don't see holdouts. I don't see guys missing camp. I don't see that stuff. So I think the fact that the Niners have to hold those teams off again another year, I don't think they do it. Where the hell has Bryce Young been? Where has he been? He's apparently going to play in the preseason this weekend. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. This was Dave Canales talking about what's going to happen with the starters. Ryan, do you have a cut of 5 here with Dave Canales talking about giving the starters reps this weekend?
My hope is to get the starters out there early in the game, get them some exposure, and the importance of it to me is how valuable the night before prep is. Waking up in the morning, we have a 1 o'clock kick. We got a lot of those this year. So just the body readiness, the plan behind, this camp was to practice early so that we can have that readiness going into this season where most of our kicks are 1 o'clock.
It might have been good to do this not the last week of preseason. I mean, last time I checked, wasn't Bryce Young throwing picks left and right last year? Last time I checked, didn't he struggle mightily? Last time I checked, isn't he a second-year player? I saw C.J. Stroud, who was a superstar last year, playing preseason. I saw Anthony Richardson playing last night. The most annoying thing I've seen this preseason is watching Bryce Young in a jersey, no pads on, with a chain on, smiling on the sidelines. He should not be ducking smoke in the preseason. He should have been playing. Big mistake by Dave Canales to start this late with Bryce Young playing. Thank you to Ryan Bosch. Thank you to Cap. Thank you to Schwartz. It's EJ Stewart. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you later. Ryan, see you later.
You're in a 5-minute break.